believe in the ripple effect.
What is up? Another episode of Ripple Effect Podcast. What a great conversation I have for you today. Christian Yordanov is my guest today. You can go to his website to get his book, his podcast called Connecting Minds. His book is called Autism Wellbeing Plan, How to Get Your Child Healthy. And that is the focus of the first part of this podcast. And we talked about a lot of stuff: health, nutrition, censorship, big pharma, functional medicine, vitamins, supplements, so many different interesting things. It was a real fascinating and fun conversation. And of course, as always, in the show description, you'll have links to all my guests' work, their website, so you can connect with them and all that stuff. Also, you'll be able to find this show on Odyssey, Float, BitChute, and YouTube, and of course, all podcast apps. For some reason, the interview I did with him got removed from YouTube. A couple interviews that I've done have been removed off YouTube, but yet my YouTube channel is still up. I think it has something to do with the fact that I don't say my stuff is kid-friendly, and I don't monetize. I've never monetized, and if it's super controversial, I kind of try to be somewhat conservative with what I tag. So far, so good. It's helped. Probably eventually I will be on the radar and I will be kicked off. I'm obviously shadow banned because for some reason shows like I did with Mickey Willis, which were very popular with downloads, isn't very popular on my YouTube channel. So obviously they're suppressing some podcasts I've done, but as long as they keep me on there, I'll keep uploading and I'll keep posting on there until they kick me off. So if the platform exists, I'm going to keep using it, and I'll use all of them. I'm on Instagram, I'm on Twitter. I believe I'm still on PARLER, but you can't use the app. So that's a problem. But if they get back and going, I am on PARLER. I'm on Float, which I just did an awesome podcast with the founders and creators of Float, Kingsley and Aaron Edwards. Definitely check that out if you're looking for alternative platforms. And I'm on BitChute, Odyssey, Library, all that stuff. So you'll be able to find this everywhere and anywhere, and you can connect with me on all those platforms. This was a podcast I did actually right before the Union of the Unwanted show we did with Dr. Judy Mikovich, which was a amazing, just about 3-hour podcast with, as always, tons of great alternative media content creators joined us. And then we had a couple special guests. So definitely check that out. The Union of the Unwanted has its own YouTube channel. Go there. If you guys are a little confused, the last one, the one with Dr. Judy Mikovich, wasn't streamed on the Union of the Unwanted YouTube channel because Midnight Mike, one of the hosts of that show, he was having some tech issues, so I ended up quickly just streaming it on my YouTube channel, so you'll be able to find it there, and you'll be able to find it on the Union of the Unwanted YouTube channel. But for future references, we do plan to continue streaming the show on the Union of the Unwanted YouTube channel, so make sure you subscribe to that. And the Union of the Unwanted, that show, the other show I host, that's also on Float, and it's on Odyssey and Library, Instagram, Twitter, so definitely subscribe and follow us on all those platforms to make sure you know when the next one's going to be and all that type of stuff. So what else? I have a merch store. If you want to support the show, please support the show. I'm trying to put out as many great and interesting shows as possible, and I'm really working hard to get the most interesting conversations with the most interesting people, capture that, record it, and then share with you guys and give you something of value. And as always, I'm trying to do this value for value thing. So if you get some value out of this show, try to contribute some value back. Obviously, financially isn't realistic for everybody. If anybody is in a better financial spot than myself or some of the listeners, then contribute if you can. If you can't, no big deal. Review, rate the show. Many of you guys have reviewed and rated the show, and I truly, truly appreciate all the kind things you guys have said. And the little jabs and jokes about some of my flaws, which is fine, because I know I'm not perfect and I know I need work on many things, but I'm glad you guys see past that and really appreciate how I try to be sincere and curious and open-minded and really just care about the project, the Ripple Effect Podcast, and the Union of the Unwanted. Thank you so much for everybody who has rated and reviewed. But like I said, value for value thing, I do have a PayPal account, which you can find in the show description. And it doesn't matter where you're watching the video. All these links will be in the show description. I do have a PayPal account if you want to tip the show. I have a Patreon page, which you can support the show, which is one of the best ways of supporting the show that way, or buy some merch. Like I said, it's the Ripple Effect Podcast merch.com. Super easy URL to remember, just Ripple Effect Podcast merch.com. Also, you can find all these links on my website, the rippleeffectpodcast.com. But if you support the show on Patreon, in the past, I've been letting you guys know in advance who I'm booking and who it's going to be on the show and all that stuff. But now what I'm also doing, and I've already done one, and I plan on doing at least once a month, if it gets real popular, then maybe more, but a podcast with only my Patreon supporters, and we can all chat and connect with each other. Not just connect with me, but the listeners get to connect with each other, which I think was one of the things the listeners really enjoyed last time also. So I think that's it. Plenty of shows around the corner that I'm already in conversations with people and talking about dates and times and whatnot. So support me on Patreon. You'll probably know about some of those. And enjoy the conversation. It's a long one, but like a lot of these shows, some of the best parts are 2 hours in or an hour and a half in, or even sometimes right at the end. The Mickey Willis show I did, the filmmaker from Plandemic, it was a 3-hour conversation. People loved that show, and there's some of my favorite parts and most interesting topics and conversations we got into was right at the very end. If you guys have the endurance to hear myself or my guests talk for that long, then please do. That's the beautiful thing about just a casual conversation with people who have things to share and interesting perspectives, is that you talk long enough, you never know where those conversations are going to take you. So that's it. Now it's finally it. Enjoy the conversation, guys, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace. Well, thanks for being with me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me on, man. It's an honor.
It's my pleasure. So let's get into how crazy is it that my channel is still up, but they deleted the interview you did with me, and I was just spewing all the same stuff I say on my show all the time. It's so weird.
Yeah, I don't know. I got a warning. I had we're talking about psychedelics with another guest a few weeks ago. Before that, I posted it and I got a warning, so they went straight to a strike and I couldn't upload for a week. And yeah, apparently we were spreading medical misinformation. Did you know?
Yeah. So what happens? Is it they told you they just completely deleted it, or that could you appeal it?
I appealed, and then the next day they were very quick in just saying we reviewed your appeal, etc. You know, we cannot have people talking against the WHO, basically, and the local authorities. Is kind of was the gist of that. Yeah, pretty. It's I don't know. You since you told me when I interviewed you that you don't use tags on your videos, I stopped doing that. And I will probably continue doing that in the future. I think that was a good tip. But I was tagging the first few episodes, so I think that's how they kind of labeled me a little bit. This guy's talking, psychedelics. Oh, we don't want people knowing about that, etc.
It's weird that psychedelics is something that they're going after, because that's kind of a left kind of thing, like you think psychedelics, it's a lot of like the hippies, anti-war movement. I've had Dennis McKenna on my show twice. The first time we talked strictly psychedelics and plant medicines. The second time he went on a anti-Trump, pro-Joe Biden rant that got a lot of attention. And it was funny because I remember thinking to myself while we were talking, I'm like, holy shit, like all the psychedelics in the world can't sometimes help you fight the brainwashing propaganda, because he was completely, he fell for the left versus right bullshit. And it was just like, I was amazed. I'm like, you know, you hear him on Joe Rogan's podcast and you hear him on London Real, and they're always talking about how like, oh, if you give people psychedelics, how like it can really help with like self-reflecting and seeing past the nonsense or whatnot. And honestly, like, he's done a lot of psychedelics. You figured he understands the power of big pharma in regards to suppressing a lot of alternative medicines and alternative treatments. And yet he failed for this you know, the left right thing. It was just, I was amazed.
You know, I've actually been thinking a lot about that lately, because you know, I'm there getting my hair cut, and my barber, you know, he was a young guy, maybe my age, maybe a couple of years older, and he's like, we need a good vaccine, man. You know, I'm like, what am I hearing? Like, everyone is at this point is like, we need a good vaccine. You know, not everyone, but, and I was just thinking lately, I'm a little bit kind of down in the dumps at how brainwashed our society has become. But I'm just thinking, I think a lot of folks that fall for like the, let's say your mother, father, or doctors, you might not get that, you know, the whole pharma brainwashing. If, you know, if your whole life you're a scientist, you might not get that the left-right thing is just a theater designed to, you know, another way to control and divide us. And I think we all have our own little things we're brainwashed about, that we're, you know, it will take a little bit more than a psychedelic to push us out of that.
I think, yeah, I was muted. Sorry. I've only done almost 300 episodes, but yeah, I mean, it is one of those, what you said is so important, because I think sometimes that is the issue. You specialize in one thing, and you're so deep in one issue that you don't realize how naive you are with other issues. And Dennis McKenna, I like, that's kind of what I thought to myself too. It's like he like couldn't connect the dots, that like it's kind of the same thing, where the same way big pharma can push propaganda, convince you that marijuana for so many years is the worst of the worst things, and we should lock people up because of it, and people who are selling it on the black market are ruining our society and all this stuff. I mean, they're the same government told you that. They're the same pharmaceutical companies that told you, like, take our drugs, not those drugs. And yet, like, you don't see that it's the same battle. It's still people in power, people who have the power of using the media to brainwash people, and they don't give a shit about you. And yet they're the same people, like you said, like I'm hearing people like, oh, I can't wait to get the vaccine. I'm like, you are a fucking guinea pig. You are a guinea pig. This vaccine just came out. 9 months ago, we were just talking about how, like, we don't know anything about this virus, and now all of a sudden, you know, 9 months later, we don't just know everything about this virus. Apparently, we also know how to make a vaccine for it, a vaccine that's never been done before. A RNA vaccine has never been accomplished. I mean, they're not even using you know, a coronavirus, never had a successful coronavirus vaccine. And what about this? All the people who take this vaccine, which there's just that story about the Miami doctor that got the vaccine and 2 weeks later passed away. And there's, I mean, the thing is, like, I don't even know what happened. I don't know if it's vaccine related or not. I'm not going to speculate. But the worst part about the censorship bullshit, which is crazy, you know, that just us talking like this gets us kicked off YouTube. But the worst part about the censorship stuff is it's hard for me to find actual information on what happened to that doctor, because they're suppressing anybody who's talking about it.
Oh yeah. You know, I was told about 3 days ago that a doctor here in Portugal got the vaccine and died shortly after. So nobody is talking about it, because, like you said, forget about that. You know, they might not delete your Facebook post if you post that article, if there was an article, but it certainly won't make it to many people's feeds. That we know that is a fact.
Yeah, are you familiar? There's a guy, a journalist. I'm actually was just about to look him up. His name's Sergio Tavares. I think what is his name? It's Sergio. I'll have to get it to you. I'm sure while we talk, I'll be able to find it. But he is one of the journalists that I'm seeing overseas being honest and reporting on what's going on in Portugal in a positive, you know, what's really going on, and really not falling for the Kool-Aid. But what is so okay, so let's go to the beginning. So, if people who aren't familiar with you, I mean, you're in Portugal, but you're not Portuguese. But
Yeah.
I'm not in Portugal, but I am Portuguese, so it can be a little confusing.
Yeah.
But so for people who aren't familiar with your work, your book, your podcast, let's get right into your history. How did you end up in Portugal? How did you end up writing your book? How did you end up starting your podcast? All that stuff for people who don't know.
Sure. So I'm from Bulgaria originally. I was living in Ireland for about 14 years, and yeah, about I guess 3 years ago, I said to my girlfriend, I'm kind of sick of this weather here in Ireland. Where could we move? And we thought about a few places, and I took a flight here to the south of Portugal. I drove up and down, east and west, went to like every big town or little towns here, tiny little village towns, we call them. And I found the one we're currently in and fell in love with it the first moment. I strolled up to the beach and, saw this amazing scenery. And a few months later, we kind of started the process of moving here. So that's how I ended up in Portugal. Still haven't learned any Portuguese over the last 2.5 years because damn, this language is so hard, man.
Tu não fala português? Não fala português,
huh? Não falas. No falas.
Nem pouquinho, nem pouquinho.
You know what? This is what I tell folks that kind of rip on me here that I haven't learned the language so far. I tell them, hey, guys, if you wanted us to learn the language as foreigners, you would have made it easier, right? That's all I say. But
is it so? How many languages? Well, obviously you speak English. How many languages do you speak?
Two. Bulgarian as well. That's my
Bulgarian and English. And I was gonna say, so if you speak, I think the transition is much easier if you speak like one of the other Latin languages, like Spanish. If you speak French, Spanish, Italian. There's a lot of similarities between Portuguese.
Here's the problem. My problem is I know a little bit of Spanish, so everything I try to learn, the pronunciation is different, and the tone, the influx, the accents on the words, it's completely different. So everything I know is tripping me up in Spanish. If I would have started as a blank slate, maybe then. But dude, I'm in my mid-30s, and I have so many other things I want to do that I think people here they all speak English, and I think they'll forgive me when they kind of understand what I spend the rest of my time on. So I don't spend my time watching Netflix, and then you can kind of blame me for not learning your language. But so about 3 years ago, I've always been interested in health, like personal training. I've done some massage therapy kind of certifications, but the last kind of 3 years I've really ramped up my studies. And the reason I got into it is I just saw people around me just degenerating, and family members, people near me just degenerating with age, getting hooked up on 5-6 pharmaceuticals. I was like, fuck this, man. This is not happening to me. I'm not going out like that. So I went down a deep journey into natural medicine, and I came out on the other side understanding that, I'm sure your listeners get it. Pharma, all that stuff is a scam. The doctors in medical schools, it's like army training, they're put through like 5, 8, 10 years of abuse, and this is literally how you brainwash people. So they believe the brainwashing because they're put through. They take some of the smartest people in our society and they put them through this ringer, and after all this torture, they're like, high cholesterol, statin, hypothyroid, let's put you on hormone replacement therapy, this kind of stuff. So I was like, that's not going to happen. I basically learned what most doctors probably don't learn is how health is created, how health is built, and rather than treating symptoms, how we can understand the underlying metabolic imbalances in the body that cause the manifestation of symptoms, right? So, so without, divulging people's identities, basically, let's just say that someone very close to me was diagnosed with, suspected of being autistic in 2018. And basically, since then, I started on serious research journey into the scientific literature in autism. So I really wanted to help those folks out because it came a little bit of a shock. And I that was another one of my fears is like, I did, I had my in my 20s, I kind of didn't live well. My lifestyle was pretty kind of unhealthy. So I wanted to know, is it lifestyle? Is it genetic? And all that stuff. So I went into the research, and basically March this year, the culmination of that was me publishing my book, Autism Wellbeing Plan, which is a deep dive into the scientific literature into autism. And it's a 300-page book, so there's tons of that. The first part of that is on the science. Basically what I understood from my research is that most of these autistic children are suffering from multiple health problems that their doctors and parents are they're just not educated to identify, right? So these kids are sitting around for months and years and decades with gut infections, food sensitivities, heavy metal toxicity. I could go on and on. There's literally like 5 chapters in my book on the various health challenges that these kids are suffering from. And yeah, so the second part of my book is how to identify and address those health challenges with the advanced lab testing that we have at our disposal. Diet, supplementation, cleaning up the environment is another huge one. And yeah, so once I published that book, I started a podcast to promote that book. So it's autism based. And then my Connecting Minds podcast is where I interviewed you. That is where, since I completed that project, I'm continuing doing some stuff on autism, like courses. I'm just about to publish a course that is a supplement to my book for free for parents on nutritional supplementation for children, how to learn the ins and outs of that. But yeah, so my other podcast is just my outlet to interview amazing people like yourself, connect with thought leaders, some of the best doctors, researchers, entrepreneurs, and the topics there are everything from conspiracies to psychedelics to functional medicine to this year I'm planning to do a lot more health-based stuff because this chronic health issue crisis that we have, as you know, especially in the States, is destroying our society. And we are a society of weaklings, weak people, and the problem is education. We just weren't educated how to. So I'm hoping to do my part in educating as many people as possible on how to live better, healthier, etc.
It's such an important topic because anytime I've ever been sick and I haven't felt that great, I just have no motivation to, schedule podcasts. It affects my mood, the way I react to my kids or my wife or my friends. It affects my ability to even want to gather my friends and go out and be social. It affects my mindset. I mean, it affects every aspect of your life. And that's why over and over again, I've said these topics when I have guests like you and we focus on health and nutrition and functional medicine and the issues with our lifestyles and whatnot, they're some of the most important shows for me because it's information that could change people's life immediately. It's information that like people can listen to this and be like, you know what? That motivates me to change what I eat. That motivates me to change the way I live. And that together will change everything. It changes everything else. You can't go out and protest and be upset if you're obese, angry at home and depressed because your knees hurt and you don't feel good and you're on all these meds that are affecting your ability to process information and think, and you're a zombie. So these things are so important. And I know I've had Jim Abrams on, who is the founder of the Charlie Foundation, and I don't know if you're familiar with the Charlie Foundation, but basically he had a son that had seizures, these real violent seizures, and after years of pharmaceutical drugs and surgery and all this stuff, he found a book that talked about John Hopkins research in the early 70s in regards to some benefits of using the keto diet to cure these seizures. He puts his child on the keto diet, cures him of these seizures after years of battling this with pharmaceutical drugs and all this stuff, was completely upset that he had access because he was a big filmmaker. He was the guy who did Naked Gun, Airplane, those movies, and he had access to all the best doctors and all this stuff, and nobody even suggested this option. You know, something that's as simple as changing your diet. They're like, why wouldn't that be a option, something that would be even just slightly discussed, like, hey, maybe give this a try. You know, there's some research that shows, you know, and that's the thing, like, if you don't have a PhD, if you don't have you know, a doctor's office, people look at you like, oh, well, I shouldn't be listening to you for health and nutrition information. Well, guess what? We live in the world of the internet, where now it's harder than ever. But if you do some research online, I have access to all the same studies those doctors had at the university. I have access to all the newer studies those doctors are too busy working and are oblivious to, because the thing is, a lot of these guys get these studies from you know, they basically are taught what studies are available at the time they're at the university, but by the time they're treating patients and talking to patients, they're unaware of a lot of, you know, new studies and what all these other
that's exactly, as soon as you started saying that, I was like, yeah, doctors are so busy working that, like, I'll tell you, my book, you take any parent off the street that reads this book once, they will know more about the research on autism than their GP. So
that's wild. Yeah. So the Charlie Foundation actually they've had some so I know they've, on their website, I've seen some articles about the ketogenic diet and some positive effects for autism. So it definitely sounds like it's a combination, or it could be. I mean, I'm assuming like every child's slightly different, but it could be environmental, could be dietary, could be all these things, right? I mean, do you even get into like the vaccine connection to it?
So
I know it's kind of a touchy,
you know,
touchy topic.
Yeah. So I didn't want to put anyone off of the book, so I put no personal opinions in there. But there's actually, I have the book open here because, you know, just in case I need to reference something. But here's a quote from a study. This is a quote from a peer-reviewed study in the book, so chapter 5. So listen to this. Based on vaccine product insert information and the CDC recommended vaccination schedule, at 12 and 18 months of age, babies receive around 1,500 and 6,000 micrograms of aluminum, respectively. Being that the human body, immune system, vital organs, and tissues are still developing during this fragile age, does it make sense to knowingly inject aluminum into our children? Now, these are researchers raising these questions, right? So I didn't want to put off parents of either conviction from the book, because it will help more people that way. But let's just, it's a controversial issue, Ricky, and to be honest with you, I think I'd rather not comment. I think people know where I stand at this point. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, no, we don't have to talk about it. I think you're right. And I think what you're doing is noble in regards to saying that, okay, whatever my personal opinion is on this issue, I don't want it to get in the way of getting people this information. So let me focus on getting them this information and not use any trigger words or talk about any trigger topics that might get them to maybe dismiss the book before they actually get a chance to read it. And like you said, when you gather that much information in a book, there's no way somebody can't get something from it and whatnot. And I mean, I've done a lot of shows with, like, you know, obviously people in the that community, you know, Dr. Brian Hooker, who I'm sure you know from the Vax documentary or whatever, who talked to Dr. William Thompson and exposed that whole cover up with that study and all that. But it is one of those things where I think we can get so caught up in one potential I guess aspect to autism that something that we forget there's a lot of other things that could also be, so I think it's important that a book like yours exists and somebody like you who's like, well, you know what, like I'm going to focus on all these other issues that could be causing it and could be having some negative effects on your child, because everybody else in this community seems to be focused on this one thing. So so people listening, like, what are some of the things that you think are most likely having a effect on children in regards to, because even autism, like there's a lot of different symptoms. There's different, I guess, there's some people who have it much worse, some people who have mild symptoms and whatnot. Is there any advice for parents that, like, hey, maybe do this, maybe do that, attempt to do these things to see if it can improve and maybe help you diagnose more? I'm using all the words to get us kicked off YouTube. Diagnose. I'm not a doctor, by the way, but it's I'm okay with it. I'm also on Float and Odyssey and BitChute, so people can watch this everywhere else. And but yeah, like, is there any advice you would give parents listening on maybe some initial steps to maybe helping improving their child's health? Absolutely.
So first of all, I'm not a doctor either, and I don't purport to give medical advice. I'm a functional health coach, so we trained in the functional methods of using advanced lab testing. So this is kind of where I'm at, and I don't. I have to say, to kind of preamble this, I don't purport to know what causes autism, and I don't believe. I don't believe doing things like looking for a cure. I don't use any of those words in the book. So I don't use the words diagnose. I don't. So what the way kind of I like to lay it out for parents, right, is there's a huge contingent of parents that they're like, they know you cannot convince them otherwise that it's genetic, right? The scientific community over the last couple of decades are more and more saying in the scientific papers, there seems to be a hereditary component. So it seems like a vulnerability in the genetics can predispose a child to autism, but they're saying it seems to be in the region of 10-15% where the genetics play the role, and the rest of it is environmental. So by environmental factors, what are we talking about? So a big one is the health of the mother during pregnancy. Then it is things like medications that the child, let's say the child gets an infection and they're put on antibiotics early in their life. That can be a contributing factor. The diet, the toxin exposure of the mother, of the child in early infancy. So there's a multitude of things, right? So the way I don't know a particular person who has an autistic child. I don't know whether that is genetic or not. In some cases, it truly is only genetic. But I believe, given the massive rise of the autism diagnosis of children nowadays, I believe that our lifestyle factors play a huge role, right? So the way I lay it out, let's accept that you have a child, and let's even pretend they don't even have autism. But what if I told you, what if we ran like 2, 3, 4, 5 tests, like a hair metals test, urine test, poop test, food sensitivities test. Let's say we ran those tests. If on the first test you see they have yeast infection and bacterial overgrowth, and maybe deficient in a few vitamins, and on the second test they have a ton of heavy metals coming out of them and deficient in zinc and selenium, and then on the next test, let's say they're super reactive to the grains in their diet, or maybe dairy also. And then we do the poop test and we see more bad bacteria, right? If I give you any one of those tests, it doesn't matter if your child has or doesn't have a diagnosis, what would a normal sane parent do? They would do something to fix those particular health issues that their child is having, right? So would I be telling you need to fix your child is broken? No, that's preposterous. Your child has a metabolic health challenge. This is kind of the premise, right? Now, the research that I've read, which is, at this point over 1,000 studies that specifically look at these things in autistic children, is they are suffering from these things, from mitochondrial dysfunction, from food allergies, bacterial infections, yeast overgrowth, nutritional deficiencies. Their diets are poor in nutrients. This has been studied all over the world. Well, there's been a dozen or two studies that show that their diets are not nutritionally adequate. So I could keep rattling things off, right? But so the point I'm trying to make here is, we are not trying to fix your child. It's not that them having autism is that they're broken, because there's a lot of parents that they start this journey of trying to do these lab tests and supplements and stuff, and the many are influenced to stop doing it because other parents kind of guilt them that they're trying to fix their child. So this is the first thing I want to lay out, is in the book as well. I go over, we're not trying to fix your child, but if your child had the flu or broke its leg, would you not help them? Like, this is what I'm coming at. So if a parent has an autistic child, or they suspect their child is autistic, the first thing I would do is run a couple of tests. The number one test I would run is called an urinary organic acids test. There's a lab in the States that I like to use, the Great Plains lab. The test is like a couple $100, and basically it can identify a ton of things that autistic kids suffer with. Yeast candida infections. It can identify if there's a potential fungal exposure. It can identify Clostridia bacteria, which have been linked strongly to autism, including things like self-injurious behavior, aggression, things like that. High oxalates. So I'm sure some of your more health listeners that are into health, they probably know oxalates. They're these compounds in grains and certain fruits and vegetables. They can form crystals with the minerals that in our diet, and these crystals can get jammed in certain tissues and cause pain and all sorts of kind of dysfunction. So high oxalates, that test will find, which is very common again in autism. It will also find vitamin B deficiencies, antioxidant deficiencies, which are again very common in autism. And you can also look at the neurotransmitter levels for a few neurotransmitters. So it's a great overall metabolic check. And I'll tell you, every single person that I've run this test on has had something we could improve. With autistic children, more often than not, we have like 5-6 things to do. So I would start there, right? And then there's a few supplements that I would add invariably. I would recommend them generally for most children, never mind of any diagnosis, but I would recommend immediately beginning a probiotic, omega-3 fatty acids, a very high quality omega-3 fatty acids like cod liver oil from a good brand like, say, Nordic Naturals or whatever, multivitamin, extra calcium and magnesium separately, and digestive enzymes, right? Because a lot of these kids have gut dysfunction, and from the literally gut dysfunction can cause all sorts of symptoms in the body. So from skin problems to behavioral issues to depression to autoimmunity. So the number one thing is to start looking after the gut. At that point, I would also start cleaning up the diet, immediately switch to an organic diet. A lot of these kids are under tremendous stress in the body from basically from two things. So inability to detoxify compounds or added toxic overload. In some cases, both. So when the ability of the body to detoxify toxins from the diet, pesticides, chemicals, etc., heavy metals, when it's incapable of doing that anymore, then we get into a state known as oxidative stress. A lot of these kids are in this state. So you want to clean up the diet, clean up the environment, and then then you need to work with a practitioner. running a food sensitivities test is super important. Get all those foods that are causing inflammation, because an overactive or imbalanced immune system is extremely common in autism. So, but those are the basics, right? So organic acids test, and hopefully something else like a food sensitivity test, hair metals tests. So those are kind of those would be my top 3. And then cleaning up the diet, organic diet as clean as possible, cleaning up the environment. So this cleaning up the environment is a little bit of a minefield, because plastics, shower water, just not having a filter on your bathroom freaking shower, that is a huge source of toxins. So those would be my basics. And then of course your practitioner would then be able to guide you after you add those 5 supplements I said. We're talking vitamin B12 and folate are important, choline-based supplements for brain function, and if there's gut bugs, yeast, candida, etc., sometimes parasites, very, very common, then you want some herbs, occasionally antibiotics, but more often than not you would do like a herbal protocol to get rid of those. And that's really the game changer, is really rebuilding the gut, supporting it with probiotics, digestive enzymes. And I'm telling you, and here's the thing, some kids will improve tremendously, others won't. And this goes back, if you look at the health history, like if a child has had a lot of antibiotics as an infant, or the mother was had an autoimmune issue like diabetes or Hashimoto's thyroiditis, some of those kids, they won't improve as much. But if it's like a late onset regression, let's say at the age of, say, between 2 and 4, those kids respond really, really well to kind of these health building protocols. I know that was a lot of information, but
yeah, no, it's all right. I mean, people need to get that information, and I'm sure that's what will hopefully get people's attention, that what the hell you're talking about, because you have you have done your research as a topic that you've gone really deep into. The environmental thing, it was funny because while you're talking, it just reminded me of a couple shows I've done in the past. I remember I did this show, it was episode actually 130 with Alan Bell. He's a attorney that turned into kind of an activist, and he wrote a book called Poison, how a crime-busting prosecutor turned his medical mystery into a crusade for environmental victims. And it's the book's really interesting, and his story is really interesting. Yeah, Poisoned, and by Alan Bell, and he was on the show a while ago, and he got sick and was so sick that they had to put him basically in like a cabin in the woods away from everything. And he was like, I forget how long he was sick for. Like, I mean, it ruined his marriage, his family, it ruined like everything. I mean, he basically had to be away from anything synthetic in hopes that they could figure out what the hell was making him sick. And come to find out, it was a reaction to his new office and some chemicals that were basically in the materials that made up his new office. And I mean, he was basically like in a bubble for, I think it was a couple years, just away from everybody, like basically bedridden forever. And so I think
they have a name for that. I think it's called TILT, toxic and induced loss of tolerance. That's when the toxins in your environment overburden you, that the body just, it's like the straw that breaks the camel's back. Then anything like someone with a perfume walks by you, and you might get like a severe immune reaction. Yeah.
Well, and then there was also, I did a episode 224 with attorney Robert Bilott. I don't know how to say his last name, Bilott, Bilott or something like that. But he was the attorney who was a part of the DuPont lawsuit, where he was also the focus of the great movie actually called Dark Waters, and there's I believe there's also a documentary about the DuPont cover-up. But he was one of the attorneys, and I believe Robert Kennedy Jr. was also a part of this lawsuit, where they found out that basically DuPont knew that Teflon, which was used for the non-stick stuff, so all your non-stick pans and all that stuff. So DuPont, 3M, they all had research knowing that it could cause all these health issues and suppressed it from the public. And he was one of the attorneys that found out about this in court, got them to release the documents and whatnot. And then this movie Dark Waters, which is a great cast too, is about his story. I forget who plays him in the movie, but it was a great cast and a great movie. So it shows that, I mean, those are just two examples of people who were exposing the fact that there's environmental things that you don't even think about, like, you know, what I'm cooking my food in, you know, what I remember for a while we didn't use them, but we always had our nonstick pans around the house, and I kept telling my wife, I'm like, you got to throw them out, and she just never cared to. And she's like, yeah, I'll get around to it. And then once we watched Dark Waters, the next day they were gone. She's like, I'm never touching a nonstick pan again. And so, I mean, just something as simple as like, okay, what you're cooking your food in, you know, like you said, even plastic bottles. I know that there's been some research in regards to, like, if you have them in the heat, some of the chemicals or gas or whatever that can come out of the plastic bottle and get into your water. So we only look at food, you know, as like, you know, what's affecting us. But even like with food, back in the day, they used to say you are what you eat. And I forget who said this. I wish I could give him credit, but now we should say you are what you eat because because the quality of like the food we're eating is a huge factor. Like, what are you feeding the animal? You know, like now corn is like basically fed to every animal because it's cheap and whatnot. So that has a huge effect. But you also touched on supplements. I'm sorry, I'm giving you like too many things to try to remember to talk about.
No,
but,
it's cool. It's cool.
But I know you brought up supplements, and it's a question that I actually get a lot because people know I'm big into health and nutrition, and I have kids. So a lot of parents will hit me up and ask me, like, what's a good supplement for my kids? Like, what's a brand that you trust or, you know, gives high quality, products? Because there is an issue with supplements. People will be like, they'll bash supplements in general because they'll be like, oh, you know, supplements, you know, it's all bullshit. It's all this. And I'm like, yeah, of course. Every industry has some people who are going to try to make a quick buck who are going to tell you that this is in the product. And then when they do lab studies, they find out like that's not even in the product. But there's also a lot of good brands that really care about what they're doing and put out high quality stuff. So is there any brands and that you recommend or maybe you use?
Oh, Ricky, I'm so glad you literally asked me like, if you look around my house, I'm swimming in supplements. This is how much I believe in supplements. Of course, cleaning up the diet, lifestyle, and the environment are number one things, and getting the sleep right there. But supplements are absolutely essential in today's age, right? And literally last night, I edited and uploaded the last video of a course on basically choosing high quality supplements for your child. So it's like a couple of hours. I'm gonna upload it on Udemy this week, and maybe we can include a link in your show notes. It will be like $10 on Udemy, but I want to give it away for free. But I don't want to have it like a free course because people won't value it, right? Because this is really good information. So you put a voucher code if you want, or they can come to my website. There'll be a way to get it for free, just putting in a voucher code. But the point is, this is such an important question because you need to understand, as not just as a parent, but as an individual, what are the most important supplements to take in daily, and then how to find quality products. So I actually am planning to do an adult supplementation course because this is how much I believe in this. So it's not that easy. First of all, because like you said already, there are some scam manufacturers, and you literally have to know which type of let's say zinc or calcium or magnesium is one of the right types to buy, and which one is not the right type to buy. So just a quick example, magnesium, you see like magnesium citrate in some supplements, or magnesium glycinate, a chelated form. And then cheaper, crappier supplements will have like a magnesium oxide. So one is super bio unavailable. The other one is, the other ones are high quality supplements. So, and looking at kids multivitamins, I want to say, Jesus Christ, there's so much garbage out there. There's more garbage than there is quality products. Out of however many iHerb.com has multivitamins for kids, I'm telling you, I like 2 or 3 products. So just because we're talking about autism and for parents, I like Dr. Mercola's kid stuff. He has a really good probiotic and a really good multivitamin for kids. So if someone is in a struggle, they want to immediately support their child, I just go get Dr. Mercola's stuff, either on iHerb.com or Mercola.com. But yeah, I would say, you need to know which, for example, bulkpowders.com, they sell you, you can buy supplements by the kilogram. So you can buy creatine and glycine and N-acetylcysteine. So those you can buy in bulk, right? But you don't want to buy their multivitamins because they're good at providing high quality, powders in packets that you can mix into your supplements daily or whatever. But their other stuff is not very high quality, like their individual supplements, like their glycine. So you need to know, it's hard to say which manufacturers are good, because even like in this course I was doing for parents, some good companies, they'll come in and they'll underdose the important nutrients, like say methylfolate will be like 10 micrograms, which is like a ridiculous dose. You want like 300 to 600 mics, and then they'll come in with like a magnesium oxide and everything else is fine. So I think that the best thing to do is people to get this free course that for parents at least, to get this free course, they will understand how to pick the most important ones. So probiotics, digestive enzymes, multivitamins and minerals, calcium and magnesium, omega-3 fatty acids, so fish oil, cod liver oil, and then a few others like zinc, vitamin D, vitamin B12, and folate and B6. So they'll learn how to pick out those, and by learning how to pick out those, they'll be able to then pick for themselves better quality. So they will know, then they'll look at a multivitamin or a zinc or whatever. They're like, what's the form of the zinc? What's the form of the calcium? What's the form of the B12, the folate? And they will know, because the same rules apply for children as for adults, except the dosages are higher. What the most important thing people need to understand is, should you supplement something daily, is can you be deficient in it? I'm stealing this from Jean-Francois Tremblay, whom I interviewed for my podcast about 3 days ago. He's a huge peptide expert. So I like that. So can you be deficient? He's like, can you be deficient in curcumin? No, you can't. So you don't take that shit every day, right? So if you, what am I getting at? Minerals like zinc, calcium, magnesium, selenium, manganese, chromium, vitamins. So vitamin, all the B vitamins in a good quality vitamin supplement are important daily. And the older you get, the more important they become to support your mitochondria, because like literally your mitochondria create your energy. If you don't have enough energy, you will age faster. Your brain will start slowing down faster. So B vitamins, the older you get, maybe even twice a day. Fish oil, so cod liver oil or high quality fish oil. Jarrow formulas, they have very good supplements. So all these things that I've covered so far, they have good B vitamins, good zinc. Jarrow formulas, I would say if you're stuck, go Jarrow formulas on iHerb.com, and their products are really, really reasonably cheap, reasonably priced, I should say. And then there's a couple of amino acids. So folks that don't know, amino acids are the building blocks of protein. And I'll tell you, I have this whey powder here, this whey protein powder, and I looked at the amount of glycine and cysteine contained. So an 18-gram portion of protein contains 0.3 and 0.4 grams of the amino acid glycine and N-acetylcysteine. Now, those two amino acids, I believe most people, especially in America, should be taking daily. The reason I say that is those two amino acids, they are with another amino acid, they make part of this compound called glutathione, which folks may know. It's called the master antioxidant of the cell. So glutathione literally is the most important antioxidant beyond vitamins A, C, E, whatever. Glutathione helps to recycle those. So it helps to fight infections. It helps to detoxify chemicals. It helps to detoxify heavy metals. So by supplying your body daily, once or twice a day, with glycine and N-acetylcysteine, you're giving it the building blocks to protect you from all the toxins in our environment. And so those would be my absolute go-to, right? So vitamins, minerals, fish oil or omega-3 fatty acids, cod liver oil, whatever, and glycine and NAC. And then in my opinion, and the research is like super unequivocal, is creatine. Like, this is such an underrated supplement. Everybody should be taking 3 to 5 grams a day of creatine. Just get any old CreaPure micronized creatine from anywhere. It's a commodity. And take 3 to 5 grams a day. It is just so good for, obviously, for fitness and stuff, but it's literally supplying energy to most of your cells in the body, so you'll be able to think better. It's good for cognitive function. There's research on that. It's good for the gut. I could go on the benefits of creatine, and so these would be my absolute staples. I would never go without these. And then from then on, once you get those, then you can kind of be a little bit more strategic about, let's say, if you're under a lot of stress, you might take like ashwagandha or some ginseng or some adaptogenic herbs. If you're, going hard in the gym, you might want to take some curcumin or, something to help with inflammation. If you're writing a book, I love these kind of CDP, choline, alpha GPC that are in like these nootropic choline-based supplements. But the basics that I covered already, absolutely every single human being should be taking them, because we live in unprecedented levels of toxicity 24/7, and the food is less nutritious, and we eat a lot of shit, and there's a ton of pesticides in our food. So these are non-negotiables, IMO.
Yeah, I take creatine just about every day. It is one of the most underrated things. One thing, I got out of it for a while, but once I started just learning more about how beneficial it would be for somebody like myself who fasts all day. I fast all day, so it helps. Like, so usually the only thing I have throughout the whole day is coffee, or I'll have like a pre-workout. I try to have something. I like old school labs because they use a lot of premium ingredients. They use organic stevia for a sweetener. That's the thing about a lot of these sugar-free stuff, is that they sugar-free, but it's all sucralose, which is bad for you. Yeah, because it's cheap, it's available. So every sugar-free thing has that. And when you eat clean, and then you get off the rails and you don't eat clean, you feel like shit. And I don't get off the rails and don't eat clean often at all. But just recently, not too long ago, I remember like, I haven't tried one of these, sugar-free C4 drinks or these sugar-free Bang drinks or whatever. I try to stay away from that stuff. And I'm like, but you know what? Let me try one. And I got like a headache. I didn't feel right. I'm like, Jesus Christ. I mean, some people live off this stuff. I mean, they have these energy drinks every day. They're constantly drinking Red Bulls or Monsters, whatever it may be. So there's definitely more beneficial things you could be using. And there's different qualities of stuff like you've been discussing. Like, there's just, when somebody recommends taking vitamin C, not every vitamin C is equal to itself. You can't just go to a local convenience store and be like, oh, this is vitamin C, let me take this stuff. There's different qualities, just like there's different qualities of beef. If I go to Mickey D's, McDonald's and eat their hamburger, or I go to, get a grass-fed beef, like one's going to make me feel better and one's going to make me feel worse. So it's not all the same thing. So I think some people who have taking supplements and feel like, oh, they don't do anything. I mean, they have to look at like, what are they buying? What's the quality of what they're buying? You know, I remember before, years ago in my 20s, early 20s, I had some really bad joint pain from playing basketball outside all the time. I lived on the court outside, and just all that jumping on blacktop and concrete just, you know, really beats up your joints. And I was taking glucosamine, MSN, chondroitin, all this stuff, and it helped. It helped quite a bit. But I mean, but there's a lot of things that can cause, you know, when you have an issue, there's a lot of things that could be causing it. Kind of like we're talking about, it's not always just one thing. Once I started doing the keto diet, like a lot of the joint pain went away. You know, it went because it was all the foods that I wasn't even considering was causing the inflammation and whatnot. I thought all the inflammation was the squatting at the gym and playing basketball and whatnot. So there's a lot of different factors. You know,
Can I ask you?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, how long are you doing the keto diet consistently?
It's funny because my wife just asked me this morning. She's like, how? Because she had somebody asking her questions about it, and they're like, oh, they're curious how long. I think I've been doing it since my son's turning 6 in February, and I think I've been doing it roughly around when he was born is when I started. So I probably, you know, 5-6 years. Yeah, 5-6 years.
Do you do the refeed days, where you have like some days with some higher carb?
No, never.
Have you done a hormone test to check, make sure?
I have not. I know that you know, one, I try to stay away from the doctors as much as possible. I don't even like go. Even the beneficial things like getting blood work or tests. To me, I don't know. I stray away from that. To me, it's like, how do I feel? You know, and I let that be my guide. And but you're right. I mean, it wouldn't hurt. But there's been a lot of people who increase, like, so I've done the Carnivore Diet. You know, I had Dr. Sean Baker on, and before I had him on, I'm like, oh, let me do the Carnivore Diet for a couple of weeks, and so I could actually discuss my experience. I actually recently, starting last week, Monday, I started doing it again because so January is a National Carnivore Month or whatnot, but I kind of, by the time I realized that it was National Carnivore Month, I already, you know, wasn't doing the Carnivore Diet. So I'm like, let me start fresh Monday and then, you know, continue and see how long I go. The first time I did it for 2 weeks, real strict. One day, and when I say one day of cheating, meant like I just had like a salad with my meat, and I'm like, you know what, fuck this. I like the way I feel. I'm going back to just strictly carnivore. And it meant, so I do cheat a little bit. I have a glass of wine with my meat because it helps me eat my steak. And it's hard for me to eat steak just about every day and not have wine. So I'm like, you know what, this is one place I'm gonna cheat with. But I basically, like, I'm real careful with what I'm marinating my food with. You know, I try to you know, use just sea salt, and I'll use a little bit of wine or whatever, or some cerveza to try to, because the acid will help break down the food a little bit and make it you know, easier or just softer and whatnot, and more delicious. And then I assume, and I'm pretty sure that most of that alcohol will burn off on the grill anyway. So it really isn't it's not like you're consuming it. And then I just use sea salt on it, and I usually throw eggs or bacon on my steak, just because if I'm not using any sauces or having any sides, it just makes it easier to eat. And then, you know, but I feel great. And when I first started doing the keto diet, I would eat 2 meals a day. And then every once in a while, because of all the benefits of fasting and whatnot, I'm like, you know what? Let me fast. Let me see if I can fast. And I was one of those people. I was a glucose burning machine. Like, if I didn't have enough food in my system before I went to go play basketball or soccer or went to the gym, I would get lightheaded. I mean, I remember days of having like protein bars on the way to the court to go play basketball. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna be there for a while. I'm like, if I'll get lightheaded if I don't have some food in my system. And now I'll go all day without eating. Like today, for example, you know, I went to the gym in the morning. You know, I'll be running around all day. I won't. I have another podcast tonight. I have the Union Unwanted tonight at 7. And by the way, I want you to join. So I'll give you the date. We're doing a European version of the Union Unwanted, or European edition. What we're doing is we're getting a bunch of guests like yourself who are overseas, who the late night ones are kind of hard for them because it's a 7 p.m. Start time. So we're gonna do a I think a Sunday afternoon show. It'll be like, you know, a time, our afternoon time, so it'll be earlier for you guys. So I'll get you that date and that information to make sure you join us, because we're gonna try.
Man, that's awesome.
And yeah.
That is amazing. Yeah, I'd love to be a part of that. Can I just quickly? Yeah. I did keto for about 7-8 months a couple of years back. It was amazing. I lost a ton of weight, and I did carnivore. But the only problem is I was like, I'm gonna go proper freaking carnivore, back to our roots, and I did it raw. So for a couple of weeks, I was eating a lot of raw meat. And I done got myself a couple of parasites, so that absolutely tanked me. So since then, I'm doing paleo a lot of the time, but that's kind of my experience with keto and carnivore, just to kind of.
So for people listening, when you say raw, you mean literally you don't cook the meat, you just eat it?
I was eating raw chicken liver, raw lamb, this kind of stuff. Yeah.
You must have felt like so primitive. Like you must have felt like a caveman or like a lion. Like I'm ready to go fuck something up.
Yeah, it's like it does. It's, you know how they talk about epigenetics, how food turns genes on and off and modulate. Like I believe there's, and even the Weston Price Foundation. They talk about, eating meat raw, once in a while, not all the time. But little tip, if anyone wants to do this, just freeze the meat for like 2 weeks at least. Is kind of the window of time that you kill off parasites, so you don't kind of do something stupid like I did. But I'm a big experimenter, so it turned out good, because those parasites, they messed up my sleep. So I learned a ton of good strategies to improve sleep. It tanked my testosterone. So I learned how to, test hormones and improve testosterone levels, and so on and so forth. And it got me to where I am now. So it was for the best in the end.
Yeah, I had some bad gut issues. Like I think it was late 2019 and or sometime 2019, where I had some gut issues, and I'm convinced it had something to do. I mean, could have been a parasite. I went down so many rabbit holes of trying to figure out what was causing it. It was the first time I've ever had any gut issues, and when people tell you it's like some of the worst issues you can have, it's true, because it affects the mental effects on you is crazy. Like you feel, I can't even explain how I feel. Like I felt like I was mentally sick. Like I was, it was insane. And the only way I found out it was a gut issue, because I couldn't eat anything. Everything made me feel weird. I felt bloated. Sometimes I felt like, I didn't know what I felt. It was like all these symptoms that didn't make any sense. I'm like, how can I feel all these things at the same time? And I attempted to eat yogurt. And I'm like, wait, yogurt's the only thing I'm not like making me nauseous and not, having some negative effect. I'm like, oh, it's the probiotics. I'm like, this is a gut issue. And then that's when I went down the rabbit hole of gut issues, and I did a cleanse to make sure it wasn't parasites. I did. Nice. I'll tell you what's really good. It's expensive, but it's really good. It's the Total Gut Health by On It, and they have like
I've used that. That's really good.
Yeah, it is really good. It's a lot of pills. I know I have so many friends that have gut issues, but they're not fucking disciplined enough. I have purchased this stuff for them, and I'm like, take it. And they'll look at it like 7 pills. I'm like, what the fuck is worse than the way you feel? Like you can't even go. I have friends that I go out to eat with, and literally like they can't eat that night because their stomach's acting up, or they have to leave because their stomach's acting up, or they can't have a coffee, because that's the other thing I learned. I think some of my gut issue could have been, so working construction and doing some long commuting and fasting all day, sometimes on my long drives, I was always listening to podcasts or whatnot, but on the long drives you'd be a little tired. I would have a coffee, or I would have a cigar and a coffee and all, which is like an awful combination for when you're completely fasting and there's nothing in your stomach. So I learned that some of the damage, I'm assuming some of the damage could have been done by the fasting, having a completely empty stomach, because I know some people who smoke cigarettes on empty stomachs and stuff like that can cause some gut issues. So I think that some of that might have contributed, because I'm a fairly healthy person, and that was I'm a very healthy person. I mean, knock on wood, I don't have any real issues. Even my joint pain and all, whatever issues those those are have more or less gone away since doing the keto diet. The inflammation and stuff has gone away. But I think that was a contributor. And so I did a bunch of different stuff. I went on the Onnit Total Gut Health for a long period of time. One thing I like about Onnit, even though they are a little pricey, they use premium ingredients, and there is some mental aspect of it, even though it's probably is like marketing trickery that, like you said about your course, like if I put it out for free, the people mentally, it affects the way they think it's valued or whatnot. It's same thing with Onnit, like it's expensive. So you assume like, okay, it must be the best stuff. It's not always the case, but I think, in some cases you get what you pay for.
Let me kind of underscore the importance of that. So you're doing two things when you buy an expensive product. Three things, I guess. So the first thing is that's an act of self-care. So that's always a good thing, right? So you are reversing the direction of potentially you may have been abusing your body in some people, right? The other thing is the placebo effect, right? So it's been known that up to 30-40% of the benefit of like a sugar pill, up to 30-40% of whatever intervention can be the placebo effect, right? So, and then the final one is Onnit. The only reason I don't buy Onnit is because of the extra customs duty and extra delivery costs. But buying high quality supplements is super important. I buy the highest quality supplements I can afford at any given point in time, and Onnit definitely would be one of the best out there. So those are really good reasons to use high quality supplements. But just one thing before I forget, right? You were talking about your friends with like gut issues at dinner. Like I've had it up to here with working with guys almost, because like there was someone said this week, I heard someone say guys only seek help for two reasons. If their health is interfering with their work or their business, or if their health is interfering with their sex life, downstairs. So guys won't seek help. And I mean, like I'm trying to educate them. Like I did a hair test on a friend of mine here, and his aluminum was literally off the charts, right? He's a carpenter. His aluminum was freaking off the charts. I told him, dude, I can design you a really good vitamin and mineral protocol that should help you kind of, blah, blah, blah. He's like, okay, I'll do that. I'll call him maybe next weekend. And I haven't heard from him. Like it's been 2 months, So this really grinds my gears, how guys, and then you hear things like, oh yeah, once men hit 40, they start to deteriorate a lot. It's bullshit, dude. We have the tools, the technologies, the wisdom now to there's no excuse why you shouldn't be able to like play soccer or whatever when you're 80, right? There's absolute no excuses why you should not be in optimal health until the day you croak, literally, which could be 70, it could be 80, it could be 90, it could be sometimes 100. There should be no reason with what we know now, unless some severe genetic issue, right? That's the only caveat there, right? So glad you brought that up.
Yeah, well, it is a huge issue how people don't. I've used this. I've said this a few times on the show when I'm doing shows on health. It bothers me when I see a S-Class Mercedes or a 7 Series BMW or some Land Rover at the drive-through at Mickey D's or Burger King or wherever, and I'm like, you guys are at a fast food place that puts the least quality stuff in their food, and so you're putting the least quality stuff in your body. And yet you're driving a car that, that says that you could probably afford premium food. Yeah. And you're driving a car that you need to put the most premium stuff in it. You have to put the best gas in it. You have to put the best fluids in it, all the stuff. And so I've always said this. I'm like, so if you pretend your body's a car, right? Like, and I use this metaphor, like if your body was a car and I told you, hey, you're going to get this car, what, if it starts falling apart or whatever, you're fucked. You're stuck with it. Like, it's your car. So it's like, you can't trade it in. You can't go buy another one. You're stuck with this car. How would you treat that car? You would say, let me change the oil on time. Let me make sure the fluids are good, because I don't want to be stuck with a car that's broken down or not reliable or whatever. Well, your body's a fucking car. Your car, you're putting the cheap shit in your car. Yeah. Like, not putting things in perspective that you can't trade that car in. If your body starts falling apart, you're stuck with it. And, and I forget who said this, but it's so true. Like, people think that, like, you go from healthy to sick immediately. Like, all of a sudden you just wake up and you're sick. It's a lot of different life choices. It's so when you hear about somebody who, like, oh, he seemed like such a healthy person and he passed away because of this health issue or whatever. And I'm like, it wasn't random and it wasn't spontaneous. I'm like, in some cases, I'm sure it is, but in most cases, if you look at their lifestyle, if you look at their environment, if you look at what they're eating, you could probably find the path to where they, that led them to where they were. It's a lot of poor life choices. I exercised when the gym shut down, and they were calling it not, a necessity to be open. I was so outraged, because I'm like, I'm 35. Like, I'm not trying to get laid anymore. I'm not trying to, pick up women anymore. Like, it's for my mental health. Like, I go to the gym because it benefits me, obviously, physically, to stay in shape and whatnot. But mentally is the most important thing. I don't feel the same when I don't go to the gym. I don't react the same. I'm not as centered and calm, and people have this built up frustration and built up, stress from life, just kind of building and building and building. And if you don't have somewhere to kind of release that, you're going to end up releasing it on a loved one or a friend or your kids or whoever it may be. And we need to kind of get that energy out. And so it's for mental health, it's so important. There's been plenty of studies about the benefits of exercise for mental health. I tell people who deal with anxiety, depression, any of these things, I'm like, exercise. Your mood will change immediately. Exercise. Go for a walk. Go for a run. Go shoot some. Well, you can't go shoot some hoops anywhere, because in Massachusetts they took down all the rims. But find some type. I know it's ridiculous. They still don't have the rims up, even though you're outside when you're playing basketball. Anyways, like, I understand. Well, I don't understand. I think it's ridiculous. But, like, to go to the extent that you're not even letting people play outside. Luckily, there's some little town nearby that's like the majority are Trump supporters, and so they've had one court. It was actually a nice court that's outside court that has been, the rims have never been touched. They've been up the whole time, and everybody from all over the place goes there to play. And then so I was playing there too on weekends, and then it just got so cold, and now it's just like there's nowhere to play. I'm playing soccer, and soccer's not even my first sport. Basketball's my first sport, but I just need that sweat. I need that exercise. So I'm like, you know what? I love soccer. I love watching it. I've gotten much more into it because my son is really, doing really well in soccer and whatnot. And so I'm like,
those Portuguese genes, man.
Yeah, those Portuguese genes in his blood. Well, my wife's Italian and I'm Portuguese, so he's destined to be a decent. Yeah, he's destined to be a decent soccer player. But he, they have kids wearing masks. It's like, what the, these kids. I see parents all the time, like, where's your mask? Where your, it's in their pocket or whatever. Yelling at their kids to put on their mask, and I'm like, you're breathing in carbon dioxide, and you're supposed to be breathing it out for a reason. It's because it's a waste product. You aren't supposed to be breathing it in. So you're breathing in carbon dioxide. And two, these masks aren't clean on a regular basis. People are always talking about, well, doctors and surgeons. Well, guess what? They have boxes and boxes of new masks. They do something, they take it off, they throw it on the ground. They take, and most of the time they're only wearing it during that surgical procedure anyways. The second they leave the surgical room, they're taking it off too. They don't like wearing them. And or they're pulling it down, so it's not the same thing. People have their masks hanging in their car. They have their masks, in their glove box. It's picking up germs and bacteria, and you're literally putting it right on your face, where is the spot that we're saying, oh, viruses can get in through this method, through your face, through your mouth and nose. And yet we're like literally taking a something that's just laying around picking up germs and bacteria because it's getting wet from moisture and putting on your face. And people don't find this. people are just like,
People
oh,
just accept it. It's that's what really grinds my gears. But you know what? I'm it's probably a life lesson for me there to accept what the things you cannot change, and I think that's something I've been trying to work on a little bit.
yeah. Well, I mean, I think there definitely are some people, we've seen it now. There's some people that you're just never gonna get through to them. You know, it's crazy that in the summer when people seem to be fed up with the lockdown, and because it was nice out, people were really itching to get out. And living in New England, living in Massachusetts, like the nice weather is minimal. So you know, in the summer, people are really like, hey, I know this isn't going to last long, so I want to get the fuck outside, get some vitamin D, and people were feeling better, and you know, people were hanging out and everything was fine, and not fine, but at least people were starting to take steps in the right direction, where people were with less fear, were hanging out with one another, going to gatherings, putting together gatherings or whatnot. And then all of a sudden, you know, the holidays come and the news tells you that things are getting worse again and everybody's freaking out again. I'm like, you do realize in the middle of summer you were gathering with people, you know, and now you're not gathering with people. You're not even getting together for the holidays, you know, which now more than ever, we need that social environment, that social interaction. And you're just not getting together with people because the TV told you not to, because I'm like, even though nothing's changed from the summer when you were getting together with people, and now when you're not getting together with people.
That's what caused it, Ricky. I shouldn't say anything because they'll probably take this video down for, you know.
It's all right. I mean,
that's what caused it, because we were gathering together. That's why there's a second, third, 18th wave, man. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, I don't even know. I'm at a loss for words, because like they're about to lock us down again here, and like
they are
pisses me off. Yeah. Well, I mean, they're debating it. They're going to be debating it someday this week. But it's when like yesterday, I wanted to go get some groceries. I wanted to get some nice food in the afternoon, and you know, my girlfriend tells me, no, everything's closed at 1 today. And when it starts like interfering with my weekend, my life, this is where I'm starting to get pissed off. But again, if you can't get through to the people.
Well, you know, and I've said this on the show so many times, so I apologize for anybody who's heard me repeat this. When I'm preaching about geopolitics and anti-war and the propaganda the military-industrial complex is using to get us to go into wars or whatever, I can kind of understand people not being as passionate as I am about it, because they get to go to the grocery store, they get to go out to eat with their loved ones, their friends, they get to go bring their kids to soccer practice, basketball practice, whatever it may be, and it doesn't affect your personal life that much if we're in Afghanistan or if we're not, if we're in Syria or we're not, if we're in, you know, wherever, Libya or we're not. It doesn't affect your everyday life that much. So I can understand, like, okay, yeah, and I get it, we shouldn't be in this war, but I get to do my everyday thing. It doesn't affect me going to work, whatever. This issue affects us all so personally, and it's I don't understand how people aren't upset about it. The fact that people aren't, like, I mean, again, this is one of those things where just like you almost have to get to the point where there's things you can't accept. I mean, there's things you have to accept that you can't change, and it's getting there in some extent, because there's certain people that I'm like, how has like, everybody's been wearing a fucking mask in public, more or less, because you have to do anything, you have to wear one. So if you go to a grocery store, you go anywhere, you basically have to wear one. So the majority of people have been wearing masks. You've been minimizing people getting together, and yet the numbers supposedly keep going up. So you have to come to the conclusion that either it doesn't work, or you have to come to the conclusion that they're lying about the numbers, which obviously with the false positives and the PCR test not really being a good way of testing somebody for a virus, because they're overusing it and finding insignificant amounts of viruses. So you look at all these things, like, we have to either decide, either open shit up, or what's our other option? And that's what I keep telling people, like, so what's the other option? I'm like, it's always like, one more week, one more month. If we just do this for another month, we just do this. Well, we've been doing the majority of what people wanted for a while now, and the numbers keep going up. So you have to, and the crazy thing is, like, in Massachusetts, you have to wear a mask in public now. Luckily, we people the first week they did this, the first couple of days I went outside and I'm like, I wonder if anybody's gonna wear a fucking mask in public by themselves. I'm like, are they actually gonna comply with this nonsense?
And everybody did.
Well, you know what's funny? I had some neighbors that their kids came over to play with my kids and they were wearing masks. And I told the kid, and I'm like, listen, if you want to wear the mask because your mom told you to or whatever, that's fine. But if your mother told you to wear the mask because we be concerned about you not wearing one, you can tell her we're okay with you not wearing one here. I'm like, it's fine. We had other neighbors that were wearing in public. And I'm like, I'm not fucking wearing a mask unless I have to. I'm like, what are they going to do, arrest me? I'm like, I'm not driving with a mask. I'm not going jogging with a mask. I'm not going to the park with my kids with a mask. I'm like, if I have to go to a grocery store, I'll wear one underneath my nose or on my chin to look like I'm complying, and I'll get the hell out of there as quickly as possible. And I'll have my kids either not wear one or wear one on their chin. And this is the thing. This leads, you can tell this works me up just as much as it works you up. I mean, I remember being at the mall with my son, and we went to a store, and he was a nice guy at the register where I was buying my kid a toy to help bring some positive energy in his life and make him happy, because that's what kids should be doing instead of dealing with all this nonsense. Mm-hmm. And I always have my kid wear his mask. I'm like, listen, wear your mask on your chin. If somebody says something, don't worry about it. I'll handle it. And this guy, after he rings us up, he's like, hey, little guy, like, put that mask on your nose. I don't want you to get sick, And he's like, you should really wear the mask on your. And I looked at him, and I'm like getting so upset, but I'm like, I'm controlling myself, because I'm like, he honestly believes he's just helping my son. I'm like, he thinks he's doing the right thing. This poor guy is brainwashed. So we walk out, and then it causes some confusion with my child, because he's like, he wanted me to wear the mask because he doesn't want me to get sick. But he's like, I'm not going to get sick, right? I'm like, no, you're not. I'm like, look at, and my son, even though he's only turning 6, we followed soccer pretty closely, and we keep talking about, like, he's like, why isn't this player playing? I'm like, he tested positive for the coronavirus. He tested positive. And then all these guys are fine. Like, when people test positive, and the only thing that comes to mind is, like, I guess he's not going to be able to play for a week. Like, it doesn't, what doesn't come to mind is, holy shit, this guy's going to die. Okay. Yeah. So that's the virus where we're talking about. We're talking about a virus that all we think is, like, I wonder if he even has symptoms. I wonder how, because that's what we're hearing over and over again. All these guys are asymptomatic. That's what's causing us to shut down society, to remold society, to cause trauma, to cause suicide to go up, domestic abuse, people losing their businesses. That's the virus.
And you know what? The other one, this one that even, like, what about the flu? Where are all the deaths that normally happen from the freaking flu?
Like, and here's the counter argument. People are saying that it's because the washing our hands and wearing masks work. I've heard that.
Oh my God, dude.
I had a family member say this to me, and I looked at him. I'm like, so you're telling me that cases have been going up drastically, and so this virus is so contagious that even all the procedures haven't stopped it from spreading, but the flu just disappeared? I'm like, isn't it more logical to think that maybe they've been misrepresenting the COVID deaths? I mean, the thing is, there's plenty of evidence this is true. I mean, they had Dr. Birx during a press conference this isn't conspiracy theory. Dr. Birx during a press conference. If you go to my Instagram page or my Facebook page, I have, like, little stories where you can save little things in your stories, and I have a story that's called COVID-19 or COVID, and I have another one that's called coronavirus, because I think I've racked them up and I needed to make 2. But I have just articles and clips in there, and from, like, mainstream publications, and one of the videos I put in there so people can remember that this was said, because I didn't know if it was going to be scraped off the internet. It is that during a press conference, she was asked, are we counting people who die with the virus and by the virus as the same thing? And she's like, yes, we're being very, conservative with or very liberal with this, and we're letting, if you die with the virus or by the virus, we're counting it. I mean, she literally said this during a press conference. There's press conferences all over the United States of mayors, governors being asked questions about this, and they're basically saying and attempting to say it in a not so direct way that if you die with the virus or by the virus. I had Dr. Scott Jensen on my show, who I also had him join us on one of the Union of the Unwanted shows. He was a doctor that was going around saying, he's like, listen, if you don't even test positive, but if you have the symptoms, they're okay with you marking it down. And then they went back just recently. Dr. Scott Jensen was on the news, and because they're auditing all their COVID deaths in Minnesota, and or at least they're pushing to audit all the COVID deaths, and because they went back and started investigating all these cases and these deaths, and come to find out, they're finding an example of car accidents called COVID deaths, heart attacks, COVID deaths, people who've been in hospitals for ever, and yet they're blaming it on the on COVID. Why the fuck do I know so many? Literally, 1 out of like 3 people I know have had the virus, like have tested positive. Like it's crazy. I'm like, if this isn't herd immunity, then I don't know what the fuck herd immunity is. Because I'm like, and by the way, the CDC has taken. I'm trying to I'm like this. I should be asking you questions. I'm going on a crazy rant. But it's so. But I see the same frustration in your face when you talk about this.
I'm frustrated at this point. Yeah,
it's so crazy that people are still. And the crazy thing is, I know people who are like crazy, not crazy, but like very right wing with their views, very small government, grew up watching Fox News and all this stuff, and they're drinking the Kool-Aid. They're like, but stay at home and don't do it. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, a doctor. There's a great meme that was going around. It's like, I'm gonna fuck it up because I don't remember the exact way it was worded, but it was something along the lines like, do you want to know how much it takes to pay off a doctor the same amount it takes to pay off a politician? It's the same thing. Like it's like this idea that because you have a PhD or because you study medicine, you research medicine, like all of a sudden your moral compass is better than mine.
Absolutely.
It's like wait, they can still. I mean, look at the Ferguson from the UK, the guy whose statistics actually led to the initial lockdown in the UK. He gets caught during the lockdown. Do you know this story?
No.
So you know who Ferguson is, right? The guy so he was the guy who first came out with these crazy predictions.
Okay. Yes.
During the lockdown that he provoked with his crazy predictions, which he ended up being wrong about. During the lockdown, he gets caught, not obeying the curfews and the lockdown rules and regulations by going to visit his mistress, a married woman. Like, this is how not serious even the people who are feeding you this bullshit are not taking it. Newsom, the dictator in China-fornia, people call it China-fornia instead of California. Newsom, he tells you, when you go to a restaurant, don't even take down your mask unless you're chewing, or unless you're eating, all this stuff gets caught at the most expensive restaurant in the U.S. in Napa Valley with his friends. And he's like, oh, well, first I think he lied about it being outside. And then there's pictures and they found him inside. And then he goes, oh, I didn't count the people. I didn't realize there was that many people. You're full of shit. You're full of who was it? Was it Pelosi who got her hair done during the lockdown? I mean, it was just like they don't even believe this shit that's coming out of their mouth. The fact that people think that these politicians give a shit about them and that they are even relatable to them. I mean, they're rich, they're millionaires in many cases. They get driven around, they get exclusive seating at restaurants and wherever they go. They are not us. They cannot relate to us. When small businesses are dying and being killed, they don't care because those aren't their friends. Those aren't places they probably go out to eat to. Those aren't they're not the ones who are paying for their campaigns. They're not the ones who can hire lobbyists to give them money. I mean, I've had Jack Abramoff on the show, who is one of the most powerful lobbyists in American history. And I mean, he's not a great guy, but I give him a lot of credit for coming out after he did time. He saw the light after he did some time. and talking about and discussing how easily the system is corrupted and how easily it's manipulated and how he did it. And it's a deep-rooted issue. And the system's designed to have these loopholes. It's designed because the people who are creating the system, molding the system, creating the laws and all this stuff, they're the ones benefiting from it. So the tax code is designed for big wealthy corporations to pay minimal to no taxes. The reason why those loopholes are there is so they can use them. I mean, look at all the politicians. They're all ex-attorneys. They're all attorneys. So what's the two most unmoral people in the world? Attorneys and politicians. And most politicians are both. I mean,
my God.
So I mean, think. I know. I should let you talk.
Sorry, what I think the problem is, right? Is even in my case, I've only been doing this conspiracy research maybe 4 or 5 years, but it has taken me 4 years to unbrainwash myself, deprogram myself. It's been there's been ups and downs along the way, and a lot of shocking kind of revelations along the way. Most people are nowhere near that spectrum, right? Most people haven't even begun. They haven't even read one book or one article about whatever, right? How the Federal Reserve was taken over, and it's a private corporation. Now that would be a good point for some folks to start, right? The problem is that the people listening to your podcast, for example, I'd say probably most of them are already on the spectrum that I am on or you're on, but we make up such a minuscule minority of the general population. And what are the general population doing? Dude, I'm looking at people the last thing they do before bed is they freaking check the news. What? So you wake up, you check the news or the Facebook, you're watching movies designed to brainwash you, TV shows designed to brainwash you, and you're consuming media designed to brainwash you. Not just for political reasons, but marketing, just wealth creation for whatever a few folks out there. But so unfortunately, the masses are consuming that content while we are here preaching to the choir. You know what I mean? This kind of way. So every time I try to talk about this with my friends that are not into conspiracies and stuff, they just can't wait to change the subject, and I'm forced to change the subject because I don't want to lose any more friends. I've lost a few friends over this stuff, probably. So
that's why on this podcast you're right, and that's why one of the things I remember having a guest on my show who was telling me one of the things they love about my show is the wide range of guests, right? And I used to have a lot more comedians on and a lot more musicians on and whatnot, and I'm gonna try to go in that direction a little bit more in the future, because one of the things I was doing, and in a way it was unintentional and intentional. It was unintentional because I'm a curious person and I was just trying to have people that I'm interested in, but it was intentional because I knew consciously that it would help expose people to different researchers and thinkers and whatnot. So I would I would have somebody on Fear Factory, the singer Fear Factory, who's a huge
on?
Yeah,
Shit.
Burton Seabell, the singer. Yeah, he's been on.
Shit.
I've had Yap, who is a singer, 1 Minute Silence. I call them the Irish Rage Against the Machine because they're very similar, but I from Ireland, and which Rage Against the Machine is hilarious because they're raging against the machine, but all of a sudden they're anti-Trump, pro-Biden, whatever. But anyways, so and so I've had these musicians on. I've had Ian Bagg. I've had the amazing Jonathan. I've had MMA fighters, actually one from Portugal, from Guimarães.
Wow.
Pedro Carvalho, who was in Bellator. So Justin Wren, who's in Bellator and was in the UFC for a little bit. So John Finch. So I've had all these different people. Different musicians. Mike Martins. Miss May I, awesome, another metal band, and Mike Martins from All That Remains. So I'll have all these different people, and and Cell Dweller, another electronic artist, which he used to be in Circle of Dust, I believe, right? I think it was Circle of Dust. But Cell Dweller is very popular, another like electronic music artist. And sometimes we go down those rabbit holes, like I did with Burton C. Bell from Fear Factory, because he has a very much man versus machine kind of themes in their music, which I think is relevant, and not just relevant, but it's interesting because I think that when you have those type of themes in your music, it means that you're maybe a deeper thinker. Means you might be in some really interesting stuff. I mean, Yap from 1 Minute Silence, I mean, his knowledge of philosophy, and I'm super intrigued with philosophy. I'm not an expert by any stretch of imagination, but I'll go down some rabbit holes of like, oh, let me learn about Nietzsche again, and what his take was on things, and his perspective, and I'll go down these rabbit holes, and but I hope that somebody who's a Fear Factory fan, who's a Cell Dweller fan, who's a Bellator fan, and wanted to see an interview with Pedro Cavallo, will come listen to the interview, be like, oh, that's pretty fascinating. And I always end up because it's hard for me not to. I end up eventually going down a little bit of those rabbit holes and bringing up those things. So like, a lot of times, like I remember when I had Burton C. Bell, we talked about George Orwell, 1984. We talked about so many different things, and I have a lot of people who will hit me up and are fans of the show, or listeners, or fans of the artist, and people who listen to the show will comment and be like, "Oh my God, I've never heard him talk about this specific topic. I never heard him." Because I'm always curious. I'm like, well, there's a lot of interviews with them talking about music, but I'm curious if we go completely off the rails and don't talk about music at all, if people are going to be upset or happy about it, and I'm like, you know what, cool. I'm just gonna do it the way I do it. I'm gonna have a conversation with somebody.
That's why I had Charlie Robinson initially, is because I want to talk about using psychedelics to confront and face and process the trauma we've had. I want to talk to clinicians, doctors, researchers, to help us address the various epidemics, depression, obesity, whatever. But if I have folks like Charlie Robinson and you, who are very vocal about this lockdown garbage that we have to deal with, I'm hoping that people will also kind of get exposed to that content, maybe become a subscriber to your podcast. That was kind of my idea, because if you look at the content I've covered so far, it's really just you and Charlie. But if every 5-6 episodes, if I can continue doing that, which is kind of, I want to do that, but I'm a little bit, see, this is where YouTube are getting kind of, I just won't be uploading to YouTube, I guess, in the future. That will be my strategy.
Well, upload it, but because I mean, the way I look at it is, as long as it lets me upload there, I will. And then, but I'm going to have plan Bs and plan Cs. And I don't know. So I just uploaded a podcast. My most recent one was with Aaron and Kingsley Edwards from the Float.app. It's a great app. It's an alternative to Facebook. It's very, but it's really, really good. We did a podcast. So I'm sure you're aware of the Union of the Unwanted shows that we do.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So the Union of the Unwanted, we did one with a bunch of alternative platforms on there. So we had we had people from Float, we had people from Odyssey Library, we had Matt from Content Safe, and we had Jamie from Rockfin. So, and we talked about all these alternative platforms. I was actually trying to get somebody also on there from BitChute, but I didn't have any luck getting them on the show on time. But it was awesome. All these alternatives are important. Like, to me, it's important to get to know the people behind them, because when you meet Aaron, like if you listen to the podcast I did with Aaron and Kingsley, they are libertarian thinking, freedom loving, non-censorship type of people, and it's deep rooted in their philosophy. Like, it's not just a business to them, it's a way of promoting their philosophies and their ideologies in regards to, and it's same thing with Odyssey and Libraries. So Odyssey and Libraries are the same thing kind of, and it's odyssey.com. So my podcast is and this conversation will be on Float, it will be on Odyssey and Library, and it'll also be on BitChute, and it'll be on YouTube. So it'll be on all those platforms, and that way, if I get kicked off YouTube, there's still other places you can find it. I mean, I always tell people the best way is to just make sure you subscribe to it on some type of podcast app. use Spotify, use iTunes, whatever. I use Podcast Addict. It's one of my favorite podcast apps because the majority of people listen to my show. They don't watch it. So you know, I don't do that well on YouTube for those reasons that like you know that we talked about before. I try not to tag things that are gonna get me too much attention. I also say that it's not for kids, so that restricts them suggesting it to people, and I've never monetized. So that I think has helped keep me, you know, off the radar for a little bit. But it's getting to the point. I mean, you see what happened to Parler recently. Parler, I don't know if you're familiar with Parler, but it's kind of like a Twitter alternative. But everybody who was sick of Twitter ended up going to Parler, where the majority of those people were people on the right that were sick of the censorship. So people are like, oh, you know, Parler is just a right-wing echo chamber. I'm like, well, you can make the argument that Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and Instagram are left-wing echo chambers because a lot of those voices are either being censored or suppressed, or they're just leaving and or they're getting, you know, kicked off. But so yeah, I mean, it's an echo chamber. But to me, it's like if it's an echo chamber that doesn't suppress people from the other side, then I'm okay with that. Like, so if Parler happens to have the majority of people who are from the right wing or from that ideology, but yet if somebody from the left goes on there, can use it, can share their information, then like, what's wrong with that? Like, to me, like, I don't care, you know, what your opinion or perspectives are. I just want people to get all the information. The only way we can make logical decisions and informed decisions if we're informed, and if you control the information, you control the people, and that's exactly what's happened. I mean, when I had Mickey Willis on that podcast for some reason, and it's always iTunes, the only place I've had an issue. I've never had an issue with Spotify. I never had an issue with any of the other podcast apps or whatnot. But iTunes, when Del Bigtree was on during the height of the lockdown, and Del Bigtree's the host of the High Wire. I don't know if you're familiar with that show. A great show. I definitely highlight. Yeah, the High Wire with Del Bigtree. Definitely check out any interview that I've done with him. He's awesome. And so Del Bigtree, that was censored on iTunes for a couple days, and then I had Mickey Willis immediately. So Mickey Willis was the filmmaker who did the Plandemic documentary. That was episode 271, and I had a bunch of people sending me screenshots of 270 and 272, and 271 wasn't there, and it was iTunes. And so of course I talked to Podomatic and my podcast host website. I'm like, what the fuck's going on? I'm like trying to write emails to iTunes, and they, you know, everybody gave me some tech bullshit on like, oh, it didn't. and I told Podomatic, I have to admit, they seem to be very honest, and they really don't care about what you're putting out. Like, to them, it's not their business. Like, you should have the right to put out whatever you want. So I will say I've had nothing but positive experiences with them. But they you know, they gave me like, well, iTunes is telling us this, and you know, and I'm like, and I told Podomatic, I'm like, listen, I'll tell you why this is happening. I'm like, it's because it's Mickey Willis, who is the filmmaker who did the most suppressed, censored documentary in documentary history, Plandemic. I'm like, it's not a coincidence, you know? And so it's you know, I've had, so those are the two times I've had issues with iTunes directly, but I think for the most part, and eventually I think they end up being available in time. But that, you know, for the most part, Spotify, you know, any of the other apps you use, Stitcher, I know, is another one people use. I like Podcast Addict. It's just super user friendly. There's a lot of things you can do with it. You can even listen to live radio anywhere in the world. You can look up a radio station, listen to live radio. So it's really cool. And but yeah, I mean, it's going to get to the point where, because of all the censorship and the extent that it has gotten, people, and I've said this before on the show, again, I apologize if I'm repeating myself, but if the censorship was mild, and it has been for a while, you know, it was like, we knew it was going on. We're like, okay, they're definitely shadow banning some people. Well, I'm definitely not getting as many hits on shows and whatnot that as I expected. But I'm like, I don't care. I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. As long as I can find some interesting things on YouTube, I'll keep using YouTube. But now it's gotten so bad that people aren't just like entertaining the idea of alternatives. They're seeking alternatives. They're like, you know what? Fuck YouTube. Where can I go? Where can I go? And you go on Odyssey.com, you go on BitChute.com, or you go on Float, or, you know, or Parler. you can actually find some interesting researchers, or even some researchers you used to like the Last American Vagabond just got kicked off Twitter. You look at Dan Dix, he's been kicked off all the mainstream platforms.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So I saw when I was publishing a week after I published the episode with Charlie that Jeff Berwick's YouTube was shut down. Was that
and
true?
I believe I think he did have some issues, and I think he just recently came back to social media, because I know he was off Twitter for a while, and then he came back to Twitter
voluntarily. He was off voluntarily.
I don't know. That's a good question. That's a good question. I don't know if he got kicked off or he just kind of stayed away from it for a while. That's actually a question I should ask Charlie. But I know he returned, and I think he is still on Twitter. But I mean, a lot of these people. That's why I'm kind of stunned that I'm still on YouTube, and I'm even more stunned that James Corbett's still on YouTube, because. So this is my theory. So I'm not 100% sure. But I have had people on, like Robbie Martin, who's been on like a bunch of times throughout the years, who is the brother of Abby Martin, who used to be on Breaking the Set on RT and has the documentary series called Empire Files, and they're very left wing. I've had Greg Palast on multiple times. I've had plenty of people on the left. That I've had Professor Richard Wolff, who's one of the leading scholars in Marxism and socialism, and so I entertain all sides, and I've had people like Dennis McKenna on, who is more on the left and whatnot, and Dr. Christopher Ryan and Daniele Bignelli, and all these people that are I would say are a little bit more left leaning. And then I've had obviously people like Roger Stone and people who are obvious Trump supporters. And I'm curious if they feel like people like myself or James Corbett, because James Corbett at the end of the Obama administration came out with a Obama documentary. I think it was Obama, The Legacy of Ashes, or something along those lines. That was really good.
Yes.
And then he came out with soon after a Trump one saying Trump filling the swamp, something along those lines. So he bashed both of them. He's like, hey, I'm gonna do a documentary about the last guy I didn't like. I'm gonna do a documentary about the new guy I don't like. And so I wonder if they feel like people like that and people like myself, who you can't really put us in a box. Like, how do you categorize my ideologies or my point of views, because they're constantly changing, and I'm constantly exploring so many different aspects of ideas and people's opinions or whatnot. So I wonder if that's helped a little bit too. I personally, I think the world needs more of that, needs people who are willing to talk to both sides. And really, I mean, it's ridiculous that I'm saying both sides like there's only two options. I mean, our as humans, our thinking should be much more complex, where you fit in either one of two boxes. Like, it's just like, no, like I shouldn't agree with this side on everything or agree on that side with everything. Like,
but that's the old trick. It's like if I give you come into my restaurant or whatever, I give you an option. You're gonna have this meal or this meal. It's like, well, I just came for a drink. You know what I mean? Like, this is what they're giving us. It's like. Do you wanna sit at home for another 12 months? No. Well, then you have to get the vaccine. Do you want to travel again? Do you want to fly in a plane? Remember flying in a plane and going to places you like once, twice, 3 times a year? Yes, I want to do that. Do you really want to? Well, you have to get the vaccine. Like, this is literally, and we're accepting it like sheep. And this is, I'm telling you, I'm at my wit's end here. Like we're accepting everything that's thrown at us like sheep, Ricky. This is. And
in Portugal, so it's funny because when I had Pedro Carvalho on, and he was back, he had a fight that he was headlining for Bellator, and the last second, the day of, they canceled it. And I think a couple days before, they said no fans, because this was like really early into the lockdown in the U.S. This is when things were drastically kind of happening quickly, and then they said no fans, and they said no, fights off. And so we ended up going back to Portugal. And I remember northern Portugal was where there was a lot of and where are you in Portugal, if you don't mind me saying? Well, like northern, south. Yeah. And so northern Portugal. Now, I'm from Chaves. Well, I'm not actually from Chaves. My mom's from Sobradilho, but it's a small village. And but Chaves was where I was actually born. But because it was the closest city or hospital. But he was in Guimarães, and at that time there was like lot of reports about how bad northern Portugal was getting and all the cases and all this stuff. And I remember talking to him about it, and I I brought it up, and we're discussing it. And he's like, yeah, I hear that things are bad. I'm like, do you know anybody? Do you? And I got the feeling that any fear he might have was all not based on his environment or people he knew personally, or people he knew personally who knew people personally who this had an effect on them. It was all just the news. The news told him that things were really bad and where he lived. And, it went on like this everywhere, because I had people during the height of the lockdown when people were talking about New England, New York, Massachusetts being like so bad and all this stuff. And then people hitting me up from the UK and different places, and they're like, hey, how bad is it over there in Massachusetts? I'm like, not fucking bad at all. I have friends that work at the local hospital. I have friends who are nurses at the local hospital. I know I have friends all over the place, and everybody's like kind of like holding on to something like, okay, things are gonna get bad. Things are gonna get bad, and like we keep waiting for things to get bad, and things don't get bad. In New York, they build hospitals. They build, these hospitals outside of hospitals for more beds that were never used. Like, what do you? And then people are like, now, oh my God, the ICU is and all this. Oh, we're at 80% capacity. We're not. It's a fucking business. They want to be at capacity. Talk to anybody who works at a hospital. If you're not at, 70 or over capacity, you're losing some serious money. You need to keep those beds filled. Like, and how many people have been to a hospital and they've tried to talk you into staying longer than you want to because they can charge your insurance for one more day, and they can run more tests, expensive tests for one more day, and that's what they're doing. I mean, they constantly do that. I mean, it's not a new thing. Like, this idea that like we're all just oblivious to the fact that hospitals are a for-profit, or thing, and medicine is a for-profit thing. I mean, it's mind-boggling. All those expensive Mercedes, like we always have the joke, like, oh, that must be a doctor's car because you see it's the expensive car in the parking lot. Well, how do you think he affords that expensive car? Even after that crazy amount of money he owns the university he went to, he can still afford that expensive car. You know why? Because he's making a fuckloads of money, and that means that he's charging our insurance a fuckloads of money, and then we have to pay for that. And that's the thing. Like, our healthcare system is all messed up, and there's many reasons for it. And I mean, so you've traveled. Most of the countries you lived in, have they had universal healthcare?
I believe so, yeah.
And so what's your opinion on it? Like, do you feel like it could work, or it does work, it doesn't work, there's issues, there's not issues with it?
To be honest, I've not really. Okay, so I broke my leg about 10 years ago. I was taken to the hospital. I woke up the next morning with a perfectly, rebuilt kind of leg, broke 2 bones and stuff, 10 bolts, 2 plates, all that jazz, and I never paid a cent. And I went to like 1 or 2 physiotherapy sessions. I could have gone like for weeks and weeks and weeks. I just didn't go. Stupid, but I just felt I didn't need it. But I paid for it later. But in terms of suffering, in terms of pain, but I never paid a cent. So that was nice, right? And we seem to be really good at handling these emergency cases, like saving lives and stuff like that. But if I then look at someone like my grandmother, who has been, she's like 84 now, and she's been on blood pressure medication probably since about the time I was born, so maybe about 35 years, and then more and more pills and more, blood thinners and all that stuff. And like she had a stroke in Ireland, and my mother stayed like 2 or 3 days in the emergency room there before this woman could get attended to, and I mean, how can I say anything good about that? It's I honestly don't know, Ricky, to be honest. I'm not an expert on the economicals, the economics of healthcare, but we're definitely doing some shit wrong, like everywhere, because just look at what people are dying from. Look at what people are going to the doctor for. People are going, and what solutions they're getting from the doctor. You go like I did a video, but it was my mother's 60th birthday a couple of days ago, and I did a video on her health journey. She had irritable bowel syndrome for 13 years. So I wanted to share, I wanted to create something for her that, I couldn't be with her on her birthday. So I wanted to do something nice, and I knew she would appreciate that. And so 13 years, dude, 13 years, she kept going to her GP several times a year. Her GP, what did she do? Nothing. Occasionally, something to mask symptoms, painkillers, stuff like that, that makes shit worse. And it was only until I kind of intervened. It's like, look, you got to do some functional lab tests, do that poop test, the food sensitivities test, and then, address the underlying bacteria and food sensitivities. Until she did that. So 8 months from beginning the first test and implementing the dietary changes, she went from, after every meal, feeling pain in her somewhere in her bowels, and headaches almost every day. She went to, when the corona outbreak stuff started in February this year, she was like, you know what? She was telling me on the phone, you know what? I'm actually eating raw garlic now, for immune support, and I don't feel anything. She went from that to eating raw garlic in 8 months. So we could be living a world of super healthy people, right? We could. We have the capability. It's more than possible, right? But it will never happen when we, like folks like you, educate more people that we have literal psychopaths pulling the strings, creating these convoluted insurance schemes, and it's so complicated. Like I don't even know. Like I don't have any at the moment. I don't have any clients in the USA. So I haven't really researched what the insurance stuff is there, but from what I've read and from other practitioners I talk to, it is so bad that, for example, if you want to run an insulin test, you want to check your baseline fasting insulin level in the morning. Most doctors will not include that in a panel, even though it's a super useful test, because insurance companies don't reimburse for that. So if they try to run insulin with the standard cholesterol, other lipids and things like that, if they add insulin, the insurance company will return the entire panel, and that doctor won't get reimbursed. So they don't run something super important like your fasting insulin, because the way they're now, so they're using the high cholesterol to put you on a statin, which is it's probably the biggest money maker in the pharmaceutical industry has had so far, probably one of the top 3 money makers. But so they do that with your basic cholesterol, instead of looking at things like your triglyceride, your HDL to triglyceride ratio, your fasting insulin, you know what I mean? Like, so there's such cheap, easy ways to identify insulin resistance before it becomes pre-diabetes and way before it becomes diabetes, right? There's the panel to do that costs like $100, right? And doctors are not doing that. They're just waiting until you become diabetic to put you on metformin, and then you have to spend. Someone was telling me insulin is so expensive in the USA. Like some people are paying like $1,000 a month for their insulin just to stay alive, really. And forget about diets, forget about that stuff. But it's when you have psychopaths that are driven by control, power, and of course money, the facilitator of everything, every one of those things, then you will never have. So just to answer your question, I don't really know much about. I hope that I don't have to use the healthcare system much in the future. Maybe for things like childbirth, things like that. But I'm just hoping that the people close to me won't have to use the healthcare system, because it is an absolute mess everywhere.
Well, statins, there was a research I was actually looking for because I couldn't find. I think she was from Australia or the UK. I can't remember which accent she had, but it was she was a good researcher who did some videos. She was a science writer about the history of statins and how they purposely lowered what the recommended number would be to help basically have doctors prescribe them sooner. So it's like, okay, before, and it's, I mean, think about how easy it would be to make more money just by doing that. If you're in the office and you're like, hey, if we can convince doctors, or we can get some research that says, hey, we should start recommending, a statin if your cholesterol's at this level, just a little bit lower than what we're recommending right now, the millions and billions of dollars we could be making. Like, why wouldn't they do it? Like, you literally, like, you just think about the amount of patients that now all of a sudden are in the category of people you can prescribe drugs to. Like, it's just, it's insane. Like, it's so, all these little things we don't think about, all these things that, we don't take in consideration could be motivated by business, by money, by profits. And when you look at
what the thing is?
Yeah.
The thing is that we were talking earlier that doctors don't have time to read research and stuff like that. It actually turns out that higher cholesterol can be protective as people get older. So I think it was higher LDL cholesterol was people with higher LDL cholesterol had lower all-cause mortality, older people. So in fact, this is literally cholesterol is what is used to make DHEA and then testosterone, and then which
is all super important when you're, it's also when you have kids. Okay, so I have a turning 6-year-old boy and I have a 4-year-old girl. When they were born, I mean, something that the pediatricians would always talk about is like, yeah, make sure you get the DHA and all the, all those things you need. And it's like, so pediatricians understand that stuff is essential for brain, growth and cognitive function and all this stuff. And then you get older, and then you're sold this book of lies of like, hey, stay away from cholesterol, stay away from fats, stay away from. You talked about hormones earlier, and I don't think I answered your question or whatnot. Yeah. But I know that the carnivore diet a lot of people who do blood work will say that eating more meat does raise your testosterone levels. Dr. Sean Baker says that, and many others who've done blood work have said that they've seen cases of that. So I think eating slightly more carnivore type of diet can have a positive effect on your hormones. But the other common thing that comes up with the keto diet is the cholesterol issue, because people will always be like, well, I want to do keto, but what about my cholesterol levels? And I always want to, like, it's hard to like get through to them that, hey, this thing that was simplified and told you is bad and all whatever, like, that's all bullshit. Like, it's not. Tell you
what you tell them in the future. I think it's a great book, and I had it on Kindle, but I recently saw it's on audiobooks. I've been re-listening to it. It's from Nina Teicholz. It's called The Big Fat Surprise. She's a kind of like an investigator. You probably know her. Yeah. So if people ask me about cholesterol and eating fat and stuff, and meat and cheese and milk,
which is very European. That's all. Like, I mean, Europeans, that's a huge part of your diet. I mean, do you in Portugal, have you adopted some of the Portuguese I guess foods and diet, or are you?
Well, like, we're lucky that over here we eat a lot of locally grown food. So this is one thing that I think is contributing to the health kind of crisis that we're having, especially the kind of the overweight, pre-diabetes, kind of this category. So we are eating things that are way out of season and way out of mismatched with our genetic makeup. So I'm kind of, Eastern European. I have some a couple of percent Italian, but it's Poland, it's the Balkans, Greek, Bulgaria. So logically, what did my grandparents and ancestors eat in the winter was very little kind of carbohydrates, because there wasn't much going around. So the best thing for me to eat, especially during the winter, is my body, my genetics, is kind of, meat and yeah, milk. You have goat, you have pigs, you have so high fat, high protein foods, and milk obviously has some carbohydrate, and it's actually a full spectrum food if it's especially if it's raw and unpasteurized and unruined by massively processing it. But then here, obviously we have fruits and vegetables, but the nice thing is because we kind of force ourselves to buy only organic, it's super expensive to fly in organic food from far away. So we get most of it is origin Portugal, occasionally some stuff from Spain, and there's some organic products from Germany. So most of it would be like meat, chicken, beef that was made here. We get bananas from Madeira, technically not very local, but like all the stuff is grown here. So which also forces us to eat within the season that we're currently at. So right now it's kind of like starchy vegetables, potatoes, sweet potatoes, onions, and then in the summer you get your cherries and other really nice kind of summer fruits. But you see, if you stick to that, you're living the way your ancestors lived, the way your genetic makeup. So we have these very thrifty genes that allowed us to survive this long. But if you add all these carbohydrates at any time during the day, any time during the year, the body's like, give me some of that, because it's designed to keep it on you, because it knows that this is high value nutrition that needs to be there. So I actually forgot your original question.
I also did, but what you were saying, is super important, because it's not as simple as like everybody should eat these things. Like it's, like you said, where you come from and what your body's adapted to and whatnot does have some effect on you. I know there's been a lot of studies on like, hey, look, these people eat this and they're fine, and some people, but it's like, well, it could be because their body's also adapted to eating that way or whatnot. So, and the other thing, the seasonable thing, like, the argument that a lot of people make in the paleo keto world, or even the carnivore world, is that fruit wasn't supposed to be available all year round at whatever a quantity you want. Like it was so even if you are okay with eating fruit, and that was probably the hardest thing for me to cut out of my diet initially. I don't have a problem with it now, but initially I'm like, I love fruit, especially in the summer. It's hot out. I'm like, I don't feel like eating something dry. I'm like having some refreshing apples or oranges or blueberries, whatever it may be. But yeah, I mean, the fruit that we're eating now also is much sweeter, and then you have to factor in like how if it's been genetically modified, the pesticides, all these things. So it's not as simple as like our ancestors who just literally took a apple from a tree or a pear from a tree and ate it. I mean, we're not eating the exact same pear and apple. So very that's different. A factor. Yeah,
much higher fructose and sugar and carbohydrate content in the highly hybridized fruit nowadays. So fruit, if you look at like little berries out in the wild, like if you ever have the balls to try like a wild fruit, they're very sour because they have a lot of polyphenols, and kind of these polyphenols are kind of toxins. They're literally plant toxins. So they're sour, they're bitter, and like fruit is actually not very palatable, like the wild fruit. So we are brilliant at hybridizing it down to, making some really delicious, like for example, the watermelon we get here in the summer, man, and the cherries. Oh, dude, like I that's why I couldn't do like straight keto. And I know it's not very paleo, but God damn it, this thing happening right now isn't very paleo, so I'm gonna have to forgive myself, But I think if folks out there are struggling with what to eat, I think there's a great book I would recommend. It's called the Metabolic Typing Diet. And then you can also go online to like, I think metabolictyping.com. It only costs $50. You basically do a questionnaire. It just asks you, how do you feel if you eat a ton of carbs, or how do you eat how do you feel in the morning? Can you go a long time without food, or do you need like a meal every couple of hours? Do you get cranky? Do you get hangry if you don't eat? So you answer these whatever many questions, and then they basically tell you, okay, so try this proportion of protein, carbs, and fat. And I'm telling you, Ricky, I did this, right? I did the questionnaire in the book. You don't have to actually pay the $50. You could just buy the book and do the questionnaire in the book. And this was right after we finished up with the keto stuff, and kind of like I was like feeling a bit iffy from the the carnivore adventure. So I applied this. So I started about 70% of my diet became protein and fat. So I think it was something like, Jesus, was it like 50% protein, 30% fat, and 20% carbs? Or so, sorry, it was about okay, it was about 70% protein and fat and 30% carbs, right? At the same time, I did a genetic test, DNAFit, and they also give you a diet type recommendation. They only have like 2 or 3 diet type recommendations. And based on my genetics, they recommended pretty much the exact same proportion of protein to carbs to fat. And I did that, man, dude, this was such a game changer. I remember one time we were flying from here to Ireland. We had some steak in the morning with butter, with the coffee, and we had to take 2 flights to get there, a bus, this kind of stuff. And we went 8 hours without food, and we arrived in Ireland. They have an amazing steak, amazing bacon. So bought some stuff, went to my sister's house, and we're like, we're not even hungry. And the point there is, once you eat right for your type, all that hangriness, like I know a lot of vegetarians, vegans, people that kind of eat very high carb as well, they get hangry, they get like their blood sugars playing games with them all the time. But once you eat right for your type, you're indestructible. And this is, I feel like maybe in your case, whatever you're doing, you're eating right for your type, because to be able to go all day without food means that your adrenal glands are in good shape. You're not under a lot of stress, so you're able to consistently either create glycogen, the liver is creating enough glycogen, and you're kind of efficient in using the fat stored on your body to create ketones. So, if you can get the right mix of foods, the body will do the rest. Like this is I think one of the most important things for long-term health, because if you look at the biggest factors that cause faster aging and disease, they are inflammation and high blood sugar and blood sugar dysregulation. So right now we're talking about the blood sugar component, right? So this is how to stay young, how to reverse pretty much most chronic conditions that are metabolic in nature, and just how to kind of be at your optimal self, right? So it's super important stuff.
Yeah, that's what I would tell people who are like, I don't know how you go all day without eating. I could never do it. I'm like, you can't do it because you're not eating the right things. So once because your body's a hybrid car, it can run off fats or it can run off carbs and sugars. And it's like, once you teach your body to run off fats and you eat enough fat, I mean, it's amazing how fat keeps you full for long periods of time. Now, some people would call it the keto flu. It's like when your body's been so used to running off glucose as an energy source, it struggles to kind of transition to burning fats. But once you get to that point, because I was there, I mean, I went through the whole thing. Like, I was the same person who would get lightheaded if I didn't have enough sugar, if I didn't have enough food before I did some activities. And then once I started increasing my fats, one, eating more fats is delicious. 2, it fills you up. And 3, it's a more consistent energy source. And once you get your body in ketosis, you're not just eating fat that or you're not just burning fat that you're eating, but you're also burning fat that you have stored. And that's the thing is, everybody talks about, like, oh, I want to get rid of this fat storage. We all call it fat storage. Well, why the fuck is your body storing it? Like, that's what people don't take in consideration. It's like, it's storing it for its energy. It's an energy storage. Well, if you don't stop giving it glucose, it's never going to eventually burn that stored fat. It's just going to stay there for when you might need it. Naturally, our primitive ancestors for thousands and thousands of years, food wasn't guaranteed. Your body stored fat for the purpose of, like, when I need it to survive, I have it. When you get in ketosis, the whole idea is to continue. And I think, I've had Dr. Thomas Seyfried, who wrote the book Cancer as a Metabolic Disease, and he does a lot of research in ketogenic therapy and dietary therapy in regards to helping with cancer and whatnot. And he talks about, there's maybe some benefits in getting out of it and getting in it, but without a doubt, there's some benefit in being ketosis at some point. I mean, anybody who's ever been so hungry, but yet there's, they couldn't eat because they're busy or whatever, and then all of a sudden you're so hungry that you feel like you're gonna die, and all of a sudden you're gone, like the hunger's gone. You're like, I'm fine now. That's you popping ketosis. That's your body saying, hey, you know what? You didn't give me the food that I needed, and now I need to start burning this fat storage. And you're actually cognitively sharper, and you're cognitively, because, and they say it's for survival reasons, and because when you're looking for food and whatnot, you need to be able to be focused. You need
to be sharp.
You need to be sharp. So there's a lot of, and there's just a lot of, I mean, I know a lot of people got into keto diet because of the losing weight thing, but that's and that's the other thing. Like, so two issues that can potentially come when doing the keto diet is one, losing muscle mass a little bit because you're eating less, and not feel, because the thing about carbs, it kind of fills in your muscles, so you sometimes when you go long periods of time without eating, you could look a little deflated because you don't have those carbs that really are just like bloat. And it's just bloating you basically. And two, it's electrolyte issue, because the thing is that you get some moisture out of your foods and when you eat, so when you're only drinking water all day and coffee, which can dehydrate you, and you're only doing those two things and you're not getting any electrolytes, anything that's going to help you kind of hold that moisture and hold that hydration. Some people will have issues with like feeling fatigued or getting headaches initially because they don't realize that maybe they need to drink some of the more premium waters that have electrolytes and whatnot. And those are getting really popular, like, look, get this, it helps with your pH levels, it helps with electrolytes or whatever. So I think that going all day without eating, hydration can be an issue because you can only drink so much water, and when you don't have, you're literally not consuming anything that has any electrolytes like sodium or potassium or whatever to help sustain that. You can struggle a little more to stay hydrated. But the amount of benefits, I mean, the Charlie Foundation has done. And by the way, any of these people I've referenced, if you want to talk to any of them, let me know, because these are all people like, right down. I'll send you their information.
I just before I forget, there's a dude, the stuff I was talking about, the insulin and the triglyceride ratio. There's a doctor called Dr. Richard Maurer. I think he's from in Maine. He wrote a book called The Blood Code. Have you heard of this guy?
No, I haven't.
I'm gonna try and get him on my podcast. You might actually like to interview him as well. He's basically, so he wrote a book called The Blood Code. So if anyone listening is really into basically understanding where, on what spectrum of the insulin resistance kind of spectrum they may be, The Blood Code is such a good book because the guy teaches you how to use like this panel of tests, like I already mentioned, insulin, fasting blood glucose, the lipids, so HDL, triglycerides, all that stuff, and how to do like some simple measurements, some ratios, and caliper body fat testing, right? So it's such a brilliant book. I've had it for ages, but I'm reading it now. We're gonna do the blood tests on Wednesday. Really good way to basically understand how much are you storing more fat, or are you more in like a catabolic state. So this is, I believe, super important. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that. I will let you know, I'll send you a link to the book, and I'm probably gonna interview the guy. So maybe like a potential guest for you. You might, if you dig his book. Just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah. I'm always looking for different doctors and researchers I'm not, familiar with. I remember I had Dr. Cowan on a while ago, and now he's kind of got pretty popular during the lockdown and stuff because he talks a lot about germ theory and
Who's this?
Dr. Cowan. I think it's Tom
yes,
Cowan.
Yes.
Yeah.
Tom Cowan.
Yeah,
I have I think 2 or 3 of his books actually. Yeah.
Oh, do you? Yeah. If yeah.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Actually, I wanted to mention this earlier when you were asking me the vaccine question. Is if anyone is interested or on the fence, Dr. Cowan wrote a book called Vaccines, Autoimmunity, and the Changing Nature of Childhood Illness. So it's a very short book, very digestible. Highly recommend anyone that's not sure if it's this way or that way. I think it's a really good book that it elucidates a lot of these things.
Which is super important because I meet so many people on that issue or any issue that they have such a decisive opinion on it, and then you talk to them for a couple minutes, you're like, you haven't looked into this at all. You don't even you don't know any of the you have just picked a team before even knowing anything about this topic. You're just like, this is where I stand on this issue.
I ask people, tell me one ingredient that's inside a vaccine, right? This is what and if someone can tell me if there's mercury or aluminum or formaldehyde, which literally is carcinogenic, right? If they can't tell me that those ingredients in there, then you don't know shit. You're almost, I don't like to be rude and stuff like that, but you're not entitled to an opinion if you don't know shit, are you? Or are we just like, is this a world where everybody who finishes gets a medal and everyone is entitled to their opinion and you're special just by default? Or is this a world where there's people that spend thousands of hours researching stuff and they have an informed opinion, and now we're putting someone who is completely emotionally reacting to someone and we're putting their opinion on their level? This is kind of what's I guess social media has allowed to happen. Commenters on YouTube, people, influencers with 1 million Instagram followers that can say, this protein powder will get you as jacked as me, even though I'm on like SARMs and peptides.
Yeah, that drives me crazy.
And
these guys are all on juice and they're trying to sell you supplements. Like that whey protein is not why he's benching 405. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I'm not saying there's not a place for whey protein. I mean, even though I think that in regards to protein, your probably best source is your food, getting it from your. Absolutely. But I these guys are all juiced up and they're suggesting these supplements, and these poor suckers who are like, yeah, he takes it, so let me take it. It's like, I've been in the health and nutrition and fitness for a long time. I have a pretty good idea that even if you're genetically gifted, how big you could possibly get naturally. So when I see somebody that's at a point where their traps are ginormous and they have no neck and their shoulders look like basketballs, and they tell me it's because they take some new creatine and some amino acids. I'm calling bullshit. Like, it's just, there's no, I spend so much of my life in gyms. Like, I went to the gym this morning. I mean, I spend hours there talking to people, seeing people how they train, talking to them about what they eat. Like, when somebody, like, the thing about gains naturally is that now I feel like a bro. Yo, gains, we're talking about gains.
Bro science.
Bro science. And the thing about gains is, like, if you get them naturally from hard work and the right diet and nutrition, it's going to take much longer to get there, but you'll hold on to it much longer too. Like, where the thing about steroids is, like, they do work, they work, and I think there is safe ways of taking them. But the thing is, like, your hormones go flying up. And then, that's why your balls shrink, because there's no need for them anymore. And then once you get off it, your hormone levels go from like 1,000 to 0 because your body stopped making it, because you're like, oh, I don't really need to make it anymore. And then you go through that, I mean, the idea is, even if you lose 70% of your gains, you still are left stronger and bigger than you were when you started. I mean, I hate to say it, but that's why oral steroids are like even worse for you, because you're not getting all the benefits out of it, and you're killing your fucking liver. Like, it's so toxic for your liver. I mean, it's going through your liver, it's killing your liver. So, but I mean, without a doubt, like it is one of those things where you see so many YouTube channels of these dudes reviewing supplements and all this stuff. And some of these guys are knowledgeable. They are, but they're selling you, because your body, when you're doing reviews on supplements and stuff, your body becomes your business card. And when people see you jacked, they assume if you like something, then maybe, but I will say, there is a lot of people in the bodybuilding world, because I grew up when Ronnie Coleman was killing it, and Dorian Yates. I'm a big fan of Dorian Yates. He's a guy that I want to get on the podcast eventually. I haven't had any luck getting a hold of him, but he's very just interesting outside of bodybuilding. He's very interesting. But these guys are actually, and Dorian Yates has said this, and I don't know if it was on London Real or Joe Rogan, whatever interview he was on, but he talked about how, like, during his time of getting into bodybuilding, like, you needed to know every single trick possible to try to get your body, as big as possible. So you really did a lot of reading. You really did understand the human body, and you understood biology, and you understood what supplements to take and how much protein and when to take it and all this stuff. And now, like, these guys just hire nutritionists, and they don't know jack shit. They just do what they're told. Same thing with MMA fighters. You see and professional athletes. These guys don't know jack shit about nutrition, and it's stunning, because it's like, wait, your life is your career, your life, everything revolves around how well your body performs, and yet you don't feel the need to have to learn some shit about nutrition and supplements and whatnot. So it's but again, they just put their faith in the nutritionist, and they're like, okay, he'll just tell me exactly what to eat and when to eat. But the thing is, nutrition can be very religious. It becomes very cultish, where like people are like, I'm on team keto, I'm on team paleo, I'm on team, whoever, and you bash everybody else. And I've had people on from all different perspectives, because I think, I don't like to assume that I'm right. I was the same person who was yelling at my mom because, she didn't get me the leanest cut of meat when
low fat was the craze.
And now I'm like, oh my God, I was brainwashed, so,
dude, I was vegan. Well, I'm probably not allowed to say I was vegan. I was doing plant-based for a while, and I even did a Thai boxing fight. Oh wow! After 1 year of training on the plant-based diet, I was convinced this is the optimal diet for human beings, and I was so. That book by Dr. Michael Greger, How Not to Die. Okay, you were never like into this, which is good for you. That's good. But anyway, Dr. Michael Greger, How Not to Die. He has a huge YouTube channel, Nutrition Fact, and I bought like 3 copies of his book and the Kindle version, and I was giving it to friends, family. I was lending it as well. I gave a couple of gifts, and I was like, vegan, this is it. This year I'm doing it, and I did it, and look at me. Then I was doing Paleo. I mean, I was doing keto, then carnivore. And one thing it's taught me over these years is I don't know shit. I am trying hard to learn. I'm researching like crazy. Pretty much every day, except for a few days around Christmas, I'm researching something health related. So when someone comes at me, like some of these, and you were talking about these bodybuilder YouTube channels, I've been watching a lot of them recently, the last few weeks, because I've been researching these SARMs, also known as selective androgen receptor modulators. They're like similar. They're performance enhancing drugs, but they don't downregulate your testosterone like steroids. So they're much more popular actually now. They're much more used than steroids. So anyway, I've been researching them, and if you listen to the bro science, like these really good-looking jack dudes, they're like, yes, I'm taking this one, but I'm also taking NAC because, to protect my kidneys. And what you just said earlier is like, well, this shit fucks up your liver. And this guy's talking about his kidneys. Like, no, dude, it's the liver that you're protecting with the NAC. And these guys are out there, spreading kind of like, because people then parrot what they listen to. I parrot the stuff I read, the research I read, and the podcasters or experts, thought leaders that I listen to, I parrot that the same way people parrot coronavirus stats. You know what I mean? So it's a little bit worrying, but from I've been humbled enough by my crazy diets and my experimentation, the supplements I've taken, and kind of time wasted in doing one thing, and then, oh, this is bullshit, I have to do something else. And at this point, I'm just like, I think I'm like you, I'm just super open-minded and fairly humble. It's like, okay, what will I learn today? What will this expert teach me? What will this book teach me? Rather than I think a lot of people, especially when they excel in their field, let's say you're a doctor, or I find this a lot of with programmers, like coders, they're super genius coders. They suddenly think they know freaking everything. They know all about Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies. They know all about economics. They know about politics. They know about how to do a war in Iraq. And no, you're really good at coding. That's your specialty. You can't. A lot of it's kind of like a fault. I don't want to say a fault. It's a feature of our ego, of the human ego, where you project your expertise here into something else. So it's very difficult then to get new information and continue to grow. And I think that's a huge hindrance to our growth, which you're definitely kind of the complete antithesis to that, which is people like you is this. If you ever talk about like a polymath back in Greek times or the times of Leonardo da Vinci, like this is guys like you, literally, you're painting in the morning, you're reading, you're fighting in the afternoon, you're hunting the next day. This is what the ultimate human is and needs to be. So I'm glad there's still people out there kind of, you're not a preacher, you're not preaching it, but you're definitely leading by example. You're setting a good example for other dudes, and do that. I'm sure there's plenty listening.
Thank you. I really, really appreciate that. I try to be, I mean, I've kind of joked about like it's my ADHD keeps me, just knowledgeable about a lot of things and because I'm just so curious that like I'll get into one topic and I'll hear somebody else and I'm like, oh, that's really fascinating. Let me dive into that. Or that's really, and when you look at it historically, a lot of people who have come up with amazing ideas or scientific breakthroughs or come up with, whatever invention, like they're usually a little bit like that. There are people who are looking at things a little bit outside the box. There might not be experts in that exact field, and I think that's important, because the thing is, like you said, like you get somebody who's like super intelligent and knowledgeable in one thing, and you can respect them for that and the amount of research and their ability in that field, but it doesn't necessarily relate to all the other things. So we somebody who is a whiz of running a multi-billion-dollar corporation. Okay, he's really good at running that business. It doesn't mean that I should respect his opinion on everything. It doesn't mean he's thought of. And in many cases, they're almost it prevents them from knowing about other topics. I mean, I've talked to people that are really, really good at what they do. You talk to them about anything else, like I've never heard of that. Oh, I don't know. I'm not familiar with that. I don't know. And I'm like, do you do anything else besides like this one thing, and it just to me it restricts you a little bit, it's like somebody being a master at chess and then thinking like, oh, he must be good at baseball because he's really good at chess. Like, no, they're not even related, and in some cases there are things that overlap a little bit. I mean, maybe if you're really good at basketball, you might be decent at football, because you're a good athlete or whatnot, but it doesn't mean you're gonna be an expert in that field. So I think that some of the most interesting people I've met are experts in nothing. They're people who are fascinated with a lot of different things, and I think that's you can take a little bit of this and a little bit of that and a little bit and like Daniele Bagnelli has said before, and I'm a big fan of his, and he knowing information for information's sake, like what good is that? Like, how do you relate it to your life? Does it help you understand the world around you? Does it help you better understand yourself? Does it help you in any of those aspects? Then you're just regurgitating information. And if you don't know how it's important, then what good is it?
Absolutely. And I don't by any means want to sound judgmental or anything. I don't want it to come across as that, because again, we always keep coming back to the theme of conditioning and conditioning, brainwashing, call it what you will. But we were taught, what is especially this Western culture, is you go to school, and then if you're a good boy or girl, you do your homework, then you'll let you watch TV or play games. And it's like, people, what do they do now? They go to work, they go to college, they come home, well, have dinner, I've been a good boy, let me watch some TV, let me play some games. And I'm not saying everybody's like that, but look at the stats, look at just look at how many blockbusters have been released and how much money movies are made, how many different games there are, and just how much okay, games are not super passive, but like the TV and film, these are super passive hobbies, if you want to, pastimes, if you want to call them that, where you don't, there's no energy on your end. You are literally taking in, and this is a perfect medium for brainwashing. And I'll tell you, we every year with my girlfriend around kind of early mid-December, we get the 1 month free Netflix trial, because we're like, okay, we'll watch a few movies at the end of the year, it's time to wind down. And when I'm watching movies, I'm constantly on the lookout for how they're conditioning us, because when you're out of something for a while and you come back to it, you're like, you see it from that different angle. And I'm constantly seeing product placement and like how women, for example, are kind of conditioned to be more masculine, more assertive, more aggressive, more reckless, kind of like back in the day, like a cowboy, the Marlboro cowboy would have been. And I'm kind of seeing these things, and it's a lot of it is, a lot of these habits we have now are just a factor of conditioning, which is not our fault, but it's the same way we get overweight or we get in a chronic disease state. It's not our fault, but now that if you do learn of this, that these habits got you here, well, now you gotta do small steps in to reverse it, or you have to do major steps. So unfortunately, most of us, we need major steps. We need to this massive action in order to get out of a chronic health issue, or to deprogram ourselves, or to just do something with our lives. That says, you want to start a business, you want to write a book, you want to produce a movie. It's all about massive action. But yeah, anyway, I was just kind of rambling there.
No, that's all important thoughts. But yeah, you're absolutely right. I know I've held you up. What time is it in Portugal right now?
It's only 8 p.m. So
8.
Good.
Wow.
Good.
So because I know Sporting plays at 4:15 my time, so that must be like 9:15 your time. That's my. Have you joined a club yet? Have any of your Portuguese friends convinced you to join the Benfica train, the Porto? No, nothing. No football. No.
No, I just honestly, I don't have time. I barely have time. I got this app, like a to-do list type of app, but it's like a little bit of more advanced, because I've used all sorts of like productivity apps and things. I just can't get anything like to stick. So with this app, I have it on my screen, written all the things I need to do. I want to write another book, and I want to do like a couple of video courses, and obviously do like social media posts and work on my website. So unfortunately, I barely even have time to listen to podcasts, to other people. That I have so many favorite podcasts. I have like 30-40 podcasts that I absolutely love, and I barely get enough time. That's why I love so much having our dog, because I have to walk her like for a nice long walk, at least an hour every day. So it just gives me some time to not just get some fresh air, but like listen to someone, consume some content. So forget football, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Well, I think that getaway is necessary though, right?
Yeah.
Just even if it's a walk, if it's the dog, whatever it may be, if it's watching a game, like you need to kind of disconnect for a little bit. Yeah,
absolutely. I don't judge, because I have my own how do you say it? Guilty pleasure is there's a channel on YouTube called Bro Science Life, and this guy, he I don't know if you've seen this guy,
No,
but oh
but I
dude,
love it already.
he is so fun. Like this guy is an absolute comedic genius, and it's like he talks about what is a pump, like what are the most alpha ways to train chest, back. Like you gotta check this out. It's so funny.
So
So yeah,
is it like, is he making fun of it, or is he
making-
actually?
he's making fun of it, but like he looks super serious, like how to work out hungover. It's so hilarious. So I do have like kind of, and sometimes I just kind of like go the conspiracy rabbit hole. So definitely, I'm not judging for people that like football or that play games or things like that. Absolutely not. We
I know
all have-
there's this like balancing act where like sometimes I think the meaningless entertainment is necessary, and then other
Yes.
times I feel guilt watching it because I'm like, oh, I could be learning something. I could be like, I'm like this. I'm not getting anything out of this, But it's like it is this like you don't want to go too far in one direction or the other. Like you don't want to go so deep into. And the other thing, your brain needs a break sometimes. Like have you ever done so much research that you're like, oh my God, I didn't consume any of that because I just saw so much information that like I feel like none of it could seep in,
It's like, I guess a good analogy would be if you train, if you go to the gym and you do some jogging and stretching, there's a certain oversaturation point where the body just needs a break. So I had a couple of weeks off around Christmas, and the first week I literally did no work. All I did was like watch a few stupid movies, eat a ton of food I shouldn't be eating, walk, listen to whatever. And the second week I was kind of feeling guilty, so I was like, all right, I have to get this video course about supplementation for parents done, because I promised when I published my book in March, in the book I was like, here, go here and sign up, you get the course. So it's late as hell. So the second week, right, the first day, dude, I had to take heard of modafinil?
I know the name. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I have something similar, Drafino. It's like a dopamine uptake inhibitor. Is that right? And it's basically it helps to be productive and motivating. So the first 2 days, I had to take some Drafino. I have some other smart pills and stuff. So the first 2 days, I was like, God damn, it's so hard to get back. But once I got back into the rhythm, I'm there like, man, like I want to do stuff now. Like I'm doing well in this course. I'm going to finish this course, and then I'm going to, start working on my book. And it's like, bam, I got all this motivation back, and it's all literally from just doing whatever the hell, watching Bro Science Live for a week around Christmas, so exactly, you need these breaks. Otherwise, it's the law of diminishing returns after a certain point, and you're not getting as much out of your potential as possible.
Well, and another thing that I see that we all have in common, us like people who need to get stuff done, is that guilt. Like my wife always uses, as long as I've known her, she's always like, stop being so hard on yourself about like cheating on that meal or not going to the gym today or whatever. And I keep, I'd always tell them, like, you don't understand. I'm like, you see it as a flaw. I see it as my greatest tool. Like I see it as like I'm a hard, when I know I should have went to the gym and I made some bullshit excuses on like, oh, maybe I needed the extra hour of sleep in the morning. Maybe I needed this, or maybe I was a little too sore or whatever. I'm like, I get on myself, and that's what motivates me to make sure I don't come up with excuses the next day. When I, need to get something done, start booking guests, or I'm like, oh, I've been, procrastinating about like trying to gather some guests for the next couple of weeks for the shows. I'll be like, oh my God, I'm like, I need to get this done. I'm like, I'm like, what am I doing? And then, and I'll be like, I start to find ways to feel guilty. I'll be like, oh, I'm letting down my listeners. Like they must be pissed at me because I'm like, I don't, if they only knew I didn't have any guests booked for next week, this and that, and so I start finding all these ways to motivate myself. Same thing when I eat bad. I do say that, like, there's nothing wrong with calling a cheat day a reward day. If you really earned it, then you know what, call the reward day. You earned it, and then as long as you get back on track or whatnot, But
That's
I
a
always
great point, by the way. Um, the rewards that I think when I have kids, I'm gonna be very very careful about what is considered a reward. Like is TV or and a Snickers gonna be a reward? I have to. I'm gonna be interviewing some experts in that field when the time comes. The next few years, because I think this is another thing that we're conditioned to a glass of wine. It's a okay. Maybe that one is a bad example because the alcohol does actually make you feel better. But if you look at like a Snickers bar, you don't really feel good. Like if you eat a donut, it feels good for a few seconds, and it kind of you feel like shit immediately. You know it. So I think reframing what rewards. For example, like we have a really good chiropractor here, and he's like 25 minutes, super inexpensive to just pop you back in, pop that spine in. So for me, that's a reward. I have a red light lamp and a vibration plate. So for me, a reward now is, okay, I'm gonna finish, let's say, this video here, editing and whatever, and I'm gonna like spend 20 minutes on the vibration plate and shining myself with the red light. That's it's a reward, but it's an act of self-care. So I think I was studying coaching a couple of years back, and I think that's one way to get people, especially people that have had destructive habits. Like my 20s were horrendous in terms of destructive habits. So teaching ourselves how to, and what you just said is important. Like alpha, like kind of more type A people, they're like, yeah, they feel guilt, and maybe those are the people like your wife. And my girlfriend is the same. It's like she's like, maybe don't be so hard on yourself. Maybe take the pedal off the metal for a few months. Maybe you don't have to like publish a book every year, this kind of stuff. And so maybe those folks need a little bit of like more self-forgiveness. And whereas folks that are more on the other end, like a little bit more procrastination-y, lazy, let's say, I don't want to use it in a bad word, but like, let's say harder to motivate, maybe they need a kick up the arse, as they say in Ireland. So.
Well, that's why I think those motivational speakers do so well. I mean, I think it's all bullshit because it's like they're telling you how to be successful, even though the only success they've had is how to tell you how to be successful. It's like I'm like, wait, you've never done anything. Like the only thing you've done is motivating me to go do something. So that type of stuff is anytime, I don't know, I get a weird feeling anytime somebody feels like a salesman, when I feel like this person's full of shit, they're just trying to sell me something. It turns me off immediately. But I think there are people out there that it helps. Like they need to hear somebody who will tell them like, go out and get, kill it today, go do it, and some people don't need that. They have that voice in their head on all the time. Like, hey, stop being a lazy fuck, get up, don't, set your alarm a little earlier tomorrow, go do this, go do that, so it's it is one of those things. And there's a sense of, pleasure is a really weird thing. Cause like you said, like the glass of wine is pleasure. The going to play soccer or basketball, going to the gym, it's pleasure, but yet it's actually good for me. It's pleasure. And then some things are pleasure and they're strictly almost completely just bad. Like you said, having a Snickers bar, but whatever pleasure you get, I mean, you can find things that are good for you that are pleasure. I mean, exercise is pleasure. I mean, I feel good. It's when I do it, I'm mentally in a better place. But yet it's good for me too. So it's there's nothing, you can reward yourself with pleasures that are actually good for you too, like you said. So it's all weird. There's all these internal dilemmas and battles we constantly have, and I think procrastination is it's something we all fight. Even the people who get the most shit done, they're fighting it too. People sometimes are like, oh, you got kids, you do the podcast, you work, like how do you get it? You go to the gym. It's like, how do you get it all done? And I'm like, I just do my best. I'm like, it doesn't mean that I'd never have days where I'm like, fuck, I feel like shit, or fuck, I'm run down, or damn, I just like, today I'm not, mentally all the. Yeah, and it's like I don't, and when I have those days where I don't accomplish anything, I hate myself for it. I'm like, I didn't get shit done. And it's like, to me, that little bit of relaxation has to be earned. So when I do sit down at the end of the night, have my big steak and my glass of wine, it's because I did something during the day that helped me earn it. Like I always use the example, like I love pizza, But if I ate pizza every single day, it would just be another meal. Like it'd just be like, okay, it's pizza again. But if I don't ever eat pizza, and then once a month or twice a month, where I'm just like, okay, it's Sunday night, it's movie night with the family. Let's go order pizza and watch a movie, and I'm gonna be a slob tonight. Then I'm going to really, really appreciate and enjoy that pizza because I haven't had any bread or carbs for weeks, and so it just, to me, it's, that's a part of it too. Things you enjoy that are bad for you will be even more enjoyable when you eat clean and eat right, because when you do give yourself that reward day, you haven't had it and you're going to want it. I mean, I hate to use this as an example, but it's a pretty good one. For example, if you're in a very sexually active relationship, right? If you're getting laid every single day, as much as you want to get laid, it's going to eventually be like, oh, fuck, man, this feels like work now. This feels like, but it's like if you don't get laid in a long period of time, I can't believe this is how I'm ending the podcast with like this example. But if you don't get laid for a long period of time, then it feels extra good because it's like, oh my God, I've really been desiring this. So there is a sense in like, there's some benefits in dieting and eating clean. Obviously, you feel better cognitively, your health, all this stuff. But when you do get those reward days, you get those reward meals, whatever it is, it's never going to taste as good, because the fact that you earned it and you haven't had it in a long period of time, and you desire it. So it's I think there's a lot of benefits in living a healthy, organic, eating whole foods, like all these type of lifestyles, being like that. There is, even if you do get off the rails sometimes, you're going to appreciate it, and you're going to feel like crap and more than you probably did before because you weren't used to it. That's the other thing. When you know what I mean? Like when you eat clean all the time, you're used to like not feeling like crap when you eat, and then all of a sudden you do, it's going to be a complete turnoff, and it's really going to help motivate you to get back on track.
Actually, on Saturday, this is just going back to these restrictions starting to piss me off. Is on Saturday I told my girlfriend, all right, I'm going out with the dog, and I'm coming back with pizza, right? So I'm going out with the dog, and I was like ready to do like this crazy not metric, but a shitload of jumping squats and kind of just a serious leg workout, 20-30 minutes of just jumping around the beach. But I saw that the pizza place was closed because of the weekend restriction, and I was like, I wanted to do like annihilate my legs and then come back and having earned a pizza, demolish a pizza. That's the way I wanted to end it. But this is what pisses me off about these restrictions now. It's interfering with my life or my goals. It's
interfering with your pizza. That's where you draw the line.
Yeah, this is now there's going to be a non-violent revolution. That's it.
Yeah, I was okay with all the other stuff, but once you get in the way, it's funny. That's with my pizza. It's funny because I'm the exact same way. I play soccer Sunday nights, and I used to play basketball Sunday nights until they locked up all the gyms and you can't go play basketball anywhere anymore. But so I've been playing a lot more soccer, and I play. And the only time I eat pizzas on Sundays is if I play basketball or soccer because I earned it. I can eat it without feeling like extra, guilty. Where I'm like, okay, well at least I earned it tonight. And so I think it is nice also to have that too. It's like, okay, well if I make myself work out and whatever, I'll get an extra good workout because I'm motivated to earn this pizza and not feel guilty about it. So there is that little trick of like, how do I eat this shitty food without feeling guilty? How is the pizza in Portugal even? I remember when I was a kid having pizza there, and I think it's because it's everybody, regardless where you're from, you're used to pizza the way they make it where you're from, where you grew up eating. So I remember when I ate pizza in Portugal, I'm like, oh, this isn't the way I like it back home. So it's like,
it's not good in Portugal, but this place is run by Italians, and they ferment the dough, and oh my God, it's good. It is.
Well, the quality of pizzas too. Like, so for example, we have a local place called Casa Pizzeria. I just plugged them because they're awesome, and he's like a real artisan type of place where like everything is thought out, like the type of dough he uses, the ingredients. I mean, he travels to get ingredients or whatever, and and you just don't feel as shitty when you eat his pizza. It's a little bit more expensive, but it's worth it because, like, one, it's better quality ingredients, and you know the difference. Because I mean, I eat, like, back in the day when if I used to eat like just any, oh, let's try this pizzeria, you just felt like a slob for days. And I eat his pizza, and even though like the carbs and stuff, I feel slightly different, I don't nearly feel as bad as I do eating, the cheap dough that they use at a typical pizzeria. So yeah,
something to be said for letting the dough kind of ferment, and I think the yeast, they kind of I don't know, do they digest, or they do something to the I don't know, is it the gluten or something, like fermented dough, pizza dough. There's another camping site about 40 kilometers away from here, and they also do like a fermented pizza. So those two places in Portugal that I've eaten pizza, I don't really think I've eaten any other pizza in Portugal, but when they prepare it like that, you're like, damn, I'm coming back tomorrow. Like at the camping site, I was like, got all this food here, but I'm coming back tomorrow.
Yeah. That's awesome. But yeah, did you eat already today, or you eating after the show?
Well, I've had a couple of small. I'm trying to eat kind of high protein meals now. I've got some fitness goals for the new year. I'm taking peptides. I'm taking, like, have you heard of peptides?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm taking some peptides now for the last month, experimenting with them, so I can go much longer without food. So I'm a little bit intermittent fasting, like yourself. So yeah, I'll have one more meal now. I'll try to keep it kind of higher on the protein end. Ton of all my supplements, minerals, B vitamins, kind of creatines, all that good stuff. So do you take
it all with a meal, or do you ever take any of that stuff, on an empty stomach?
Oh yeah. So like certain things can be taken on an empty stomach, like zinc, for example, occasionally, sometimes with food. Oh Jesus Christ, like it's so complex. Like, this is why I really wanna create a very economically priced course for adults, and have like several different goals. Like if your goal is just health, like general health, or if you have some fitness goals, or if you want to battle you're battling a chronic disease, 5-6 different things, and just really kind of spell it out for people. Because like I'm talking to people, they're asking me, is this one good? Is this one good? And they're sending me pictures, and I'm like I'm answering so many of these questions every week that they say, if you need to do that, it's time to either create an FAQ on your website. In my case, I think I need to do this, spread the knowledge, because I'm telling you, man, like I'm glad you're on the supplement kind of train, because I was even thinking, I probably shouldn't say this, someone will steal my idea. I was even thinking of doing like a children's book that kind of, the story is about how daddy gets sick or whatever, like something so like while you're reading your child the book, you can kind of instill a little bit knowledge about the importance of nutrition, healthy diet. The B vitamins are good for energy. It's very simple stuff. B vitamins are good for energy. Vitamin D comes from the sun. Very basic stuff. But the sure as shit ain't gonna learn that in school, unfortunately. This is the worst part, is that we have to take matters into our own hands. But yeah, so that'll be me. What about yourself? Are you steak and wine?
Yeah, probably steak and wine. I'm doing the carnivore diet, so chances are my kids love. I got them in there eating ribs, because
Nice.
I can't get them to eat. My daughter's like super picky. Well, she's very similar to my wife, but she's so me and my son would eat ribs, and I got him to eat it because I'm like, hey, it's fun. Like, you just pick it up with your hands. I don't need to feed you. You don't need to feed yourself. You could just pick it up, and you get dirty. Who cares? And so that's how I kind of started introducing more meats in their diet, because I'm trying to get them to, they're kids. They're gonna have friends that bring over candy, and they're like, Dad, can I have it? I'm like, yeah, you're a kid. I mean, I did it, But I definitely try my best to try to make sure that I balance it out with something healthy too. So like, for example, this morning, I made them pancakes, and I make like these paleo pancakes with like this. We use this syrup that's a alternative to regular syrup, and that's healthy. And so they get eggs in their diet. They get all
Nice.
the paleo ingredients that's in the mix or whatever. And I think eggs are super important. So
Super important.
yeah. So
Almost
I mean,
daily. If you don't have like sensitivities to them, what I do is to ensure excuse me, to ensure that I don't get sensitive to them, because I run a food sensitivity panel on us, once a year, maybe a little less often, and like egg is creeping up, so I take breaks from egg, but then I just drink them raw. Like I have 2 or 4 raw, and then I'll have like a kind of like a slightly fried. So if they're not sensitive to them or allergic to them, I think kids, because there's so much thing, did you know that choline is a B vitamin technically?
I've heard people say that. Yes.
Yeah, it's not, nobody talks about choline. Autistic kids are deficient in choline. Pregnant women that need a ton. People with genetic variations like MTHFR, like myself, need choline. And there is I don't even know if there's an RDA for choline. Like it's so important for brain health and methylation, whatever. And like pretty much eggs, liver, these are like there's so few sources. And unless you supplement, like myself, I have like 2-3 different types of choline in my supplements. People are just living entire lifetimes with marginal mineral and vitamin deficiencies, and then think about, why are people feeling like crap? Why is there so much? Why is there an epidemic of chronic illness? It's because like these RDAs. I'm sorry, final rant. These RDAs are not about. There's nothing to do with optimal health. The RDAs, just so you don't get like some type of acute vitamin D deficiency symptom like beriberi or scurvy or stuff like that. So the RDAs are the bare minimum, just so you can survive and go work in the factory. That's all they are. There's nothing to do with optimal health. This is, I think, super important. So I'm glad at least, because I talk to a lot of parents, and it's difficult to get them on the meat, especially they're like more plant-based, or they've been brainwashed that meat will kill the planet. And I have to spend a ton of energy to convince them that the kids need more meat. They all need more meat. So I'm glad, that you're already there, and you get it, man. You're muted.
I did it again.
You're muted again. No, you're muted again.
There we go. There was a delay, so I'm like, oh, I didn't mute myself.
Oh.
But yeah, without a doubt, I feel like Joe Rogan. We just did 3 hours.
Jesus. Do you normally do 3 hours, or
it's all honestly, it's a matter of how available the guest is, if I'm strapped for time or whatnot, and then if the conversation's flowing. So I've had shows where a guest is like like James Corbett, like usually I can't get him on for longer than hour and a half a max, just because he's so busy and he's in such demand. Then I've had certain guests on. I think Richard Grove is one of my longest interviews. I think we might have went for 3.5 hours, 4 hours, something like that. Jesus. And this is a milestone, because I've only had a handful of shows that I've done 3 hours on. So yeah. But it's good, because it's funny, because I don't know who I was talking to. I don't know if it was on the show or a friend of mine or somebody, when I was saying, like, sometimes the real long shows, I'm always like, I hope listeners stay till the end, because some of the best parts are like an hour later or hour and a half later or 2 hours later. So it's and if people are listening to Joe Rogan's show, they find that too, where like sometimes you listen to the first 45 minutes, you're like, yeah, nothing that interesting, and then like all of a sudden they get into a topic, you're like, oh, this is good, like I'm really intrigued with like what they're talking about. So I always hope that the listeners stick out till the end. But yeah, I thank you, Christian. I thank you so much. Oh, it's in regards to supplements, I don't know, Keto Logic, if you ever attempt to do the keto diet again, they have a ketone supplements where You take it with water. It really helps with like your sustained energy, cognitive function. It helps with all those type of benefits you get from being in ketosis. And I know some people who struggled to get their bodies to burn fats for energy. That's helped a lot. Could get it like a ketone supplement. That's gonna, and they're one of the better ones because some of them taste like shit, but theirs actually tastes really good. It's a little bit pricey because I think it's kind of newer supplements and there's not a whole lot of companies out there doing it. But it is really good. It works. Like you do feel like you get a little jolt of energy. You can just mix it with water or whatever. They taste good.
What's the name again?
It's a Keto Logic is the company.
Okay.
And they're awesome. And if so Dr. Dominic D'Agostino, are you familiar with him?
Yes.
Yeah, he's been on my show some years ago on his website, which I haven't been on for a while, but I'm pretty sure it's like ketonutrition.com. He actually does like research on all the supplements and foods and snacks before he promotes them. So on his website, he'll actually have like supplements that he knows works and he's tested and whatnot and recommends. So that's awesome. That's another guy that would be great for your show. Another guy that would be great for your show too is CJ Hunt. He did the documentary The Perfect Human Diet, and he was like a guy who was having all these health issues. He was a athlete, and then as he got older he started having all these health issues, and then he's like, nutrition is so conflicting. Like there's one person says you should eat this way, another person says you should eat that way. There's all this conflicting information and research. So literally the documentary is his journey looking for the perfect human diet. And so he talks to people from all aspects of, like he talks to anthropologists and talks to like how did our ancestors eat. He talked to paleo people, keto people, farmers. What do you feed your animals? All so many different aspects and he had no agenda, and he basically just uses documented this journey so the watcher can learn with him like what works and what doesn't work. So it's very fascinating, but he's another really awesome guy. But we'll definitely have to stay in touch. There's a lot of people I would love to hear on your show that have been on my show that I definitely want to connect you with. And
awesome, brother.
And
appreciate it, man.
Hey, that's what I love about the podcast community. We're all we can all help each other. And
listen, if you want to run any panels like poop or hormones or urine, anything, if you want to run anything, let me know. I'll hook you up. At our age, we're kind of the same age. I ran that comprehensive hormone panel a couple of years ago and kind of had some big surprises there. But that was mostly probably due to those parasites that after my carnivore experiment. At this age, it's worth doing some of these tests at least once, that kind of way, at least once in a decade, just to make sure everything under the hood is kind of so you at least look like you're one of the people that would appreciate the data there. So anyway, keep that in mind if you ever need practitioner prices on tests and stuff like that.
Awesome. Yeah, because that is stuff that I've kind of thought about for a long time, just kind of doing blood work or doing certain tests to kind of learn a little bit more about my body and where I am and whatnot. And obviously physically I can kind of figure out like how am I feeling or whatnot, but getting some more detailed information, like you said, it's always beneficial. So it will always, like that organic acids test that I was talking about, that's very useful in autism. I've run it in plenty of adults this year. And we always find like at least 3 different things that we can improve. And in a couple of cases, there were older folks. They were kind of in their 60s, and 70 was the other dude. We found like 15 things. So the older you get, the more things you will find. But what's the trick is find them early, find them while they're kind of maybe not even all of them out of range, address them then, and never find them again. Keep them under control all your life and live your optimal health, optimal life. That's kind of the key. Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. Well, let listeners know where they can get your podcast, where they can get your book, and where they can connect with you.
So christianyordanov.com is my website. They can probably find everything there. Connecting Minds is the main podcast I have. I interview a ton of amazing people like Ricky, of course. I also have another podcast, Autism Wellbeing Plan, where I talk more about my book, Autism Wellbeing Plan, which you can find on Amazon. of course, it's all on the website, christianyordanov.com. YouTube channel, again, christianyordanov.com. Same with Twitter, Facebook. I don't really post much other than podcast episodes. I'm not really big into social media. I don't want to support them, but I realize I need to get the content out there somehow. So I'll be working a lot more on the website. I'm hoping to have a lot more videos and articles on all things health, not just children's health, adult health. Longevity is one of my biggest research areas. So staying young, all that good stuff, gut health, all that good stuff, everything we covered here and more. So yeah, that's me, Ricky, and I just want to say appreciate you having me on your podcast. It's a real honor, and yeah, so glad that Charlie connected us. You're like I feel like we're kindred spirits, that kind of way.
Well, Charlie said the same thing. He's like, dude, I got to introduce you to this guy. He lives in Portugal. He's like, I'm telling you guys are going to connect, and I'm like, oh, I'd love to, So, and then I listened to your interview with him and whatnot. So, yeah, it was awesome. That's why I was excited to have you on, because I'm like, there's so many things we could talk about that I'm like, I'm sure we'll have no problem kind of, hitting on everything. But it's funny because you kind of remind me of Dave Asprey. You're like the European Dave Asprey. You know who that is from?
Dude, of course, I know who Dave Asprey is.
Hopefully that's a compliment. But
oh, thank you, Jesus. I mean, I that's an extreme compliment that I don't think I deserve, but appreciate it.
But well, it's funny. He uses very similar glasses too. He's always I used
to have his brand, but they kind of a lot of travel and wear and tear. So these are kind of new ones. I was using his for a couple of years. Really good stuff, actually.
Well, real quick before I let you go, because we're talking about your glasses, do you want to let people know why you use them and why Dave Asprey uses them?
Oh, so I don't have my other pairs here. So these glasses block a large part of the blue light spectrum. So I have a projector like blasting light at me here, so the light's really bad. But I wear them at the computer from about 5-6 in the evening till about 2 hours before bed, just to kind of reduce the blue light exposure, because this is how we evolved. So we evolved with a ton of blue light in the morning that wakes us up, stimulates us, gets cortisol released, help us get moving. And then we evolved to have very little blue light in the evening. So these reduce some of that blue light. And then I have the red lenses that cover all the area around the eyes as much as possible. I have a very big nose, so I still get some light through, but it's better than nothing. So the red lenses, they filter out all the blue light, and that really helps your circadian rhythm. It helps you fall asleep better. Blue light is really detrimental to a person's melatonin production. So, this is one of my top hacks for better sleep. I think basically people have to understand you need to have as much light, if possible, as the sun would provide you. So at home in the evening, obviously it's the opposite. We wake up, we stay indoors now, and there's very little light. We should be doing the opposite. When you wake up in the morning, you should get the hell out the house and go for like a 20-30 minute walk. Even on a cloudy day, you get 10 times more blue light than you'd ever get at home. And then at night, you need to be reducing those lights. And I'm surprised this isn't catching up more in Europe. I'm always brainwashing people about it. It's just very slow to very slow to spread this information.
Yeah, I mean, I even have the app that starts. You can kind of set it at whatever time, but at night it starts kind of taking out the blue tint to my phone.
Flux?
So that
Flux.
It might be. Yeah, that might be the one I use. Yeah, and but it's beneficial because, like you said, if not, you look at your phone real late and you were just tired, and next thing you know, 2 hours later, you're still looking at your phone. You're like, I was supposed to be sleeping and I was tired 2 hours ago. Why am I still up? So it definitely messes you up. And sleep is obviously crucial and super important. So, but hey, thank you so much, Christian. We'll definitely keep in touch. I will make sure to remind you also about the Union of the Unwanted with all the European guests and stuff. Make sure you're involved in that and joining us for that. And I'm sure we'll stay connected.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Ricky.
Hey, thanks. Have a great night.
You too, brother.
See ya.
Cheers.